Orange man bad and China scary. Fund the police and grow our military. Ignore the fact that Biden's dying. Keep hammering on how Trump is lying. The media is where we vent and manufacture your consent. We just want you all to feel much better before you remember to vote in November. And don't listen to those commies say it's Joe, Joe. It's Joe, Joe, it's Joe, but just admit that it is Joe. It's over, Joe. It's over. Tell Joe to go, it's Joe. Just vote blue, no matter who. Either way, the whole world's future rests on you.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
AI generated.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
AI music's getting crazy.
Climate change will kill us all. Eventually, anyway. Vote for Joe. I don't want to hear you say.
I hate that AI can make such catchy music too.
Yeah, that's quite something.
It's over, Joe. It's over.
Hello. Yes.
It's over. It's over. It's over, Joe. It's over. Just admit that it's over. Oh, oh, Joe. It's over, Joe. Oh, 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 it's over.
Hello. Whoa, I cannot hear you. Hold on.
Hey, everybody. You should hear everybody else now. All right. Hey, welcome everybody to tonight's little impromptu stream. If you guys have been around streams, you know, I've played that AI song for a while now, and it seemed fitting for today that it is.
That was AI?
That is AI. Can you believe what AI can do with music now? It's actually almost like kind of depressing for musicians.
Yeah.
But it doesn't create like, here's the thing about AI. I think art like this is too. It takes other things rather than innovate something completely, you know, like original. And but it can make a catchy tune. So that's like the thing. So that's crazy. Drop the link. You guys want the link to the song? All right. Anyway, while I'm getting that, I wanted to kind of talk about what's going on today. So you can see on the screen here, we got some YouTube friends here. You guys know Chris, vlogging through history. Where you just traveled back from Scotland? You travel so much. It's so cool.
In the last 3 weeks, I've been in Scotland, New Orleans, and Denver. But now I'm home for a while.
Well, that's good. And then our good friend Cypher, Dr.
Cypher, that's right.
You guys don't know, he got his doctorate. And what I think is the coolest, your dissertation, probably the coolest I've ever heard of. Somebody don't get me wrong, correct me if I'm wrong. Violence in the Old West, basically.
American Southwest, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Literally like cowboy fights. You majored in.
I mean, yeah,
it's a little reductionist, but
there is one chapter that is completely about a range war. So, yeah.
Well, anyway, we also I'm waiting on. I think he's going to join a little bit later. He's out with his family. We have Mr. Beat, who said he was going to drop by. Thank you guys for dragging me away from whatever you were doing tonight. I was literally in the shower.
The praxis exam.
I was watching
praxis. Which
those
one?
who are about to die on my TV. So,
which praxis did you take?
Social studies. I got 198 on the initial, prefigured score. They have to get the actual score later, but 198, I believe, is pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. You should do great on it. So if the rest of you don't know, praxis are tests that teachers have to take to be able to be qualified to teach. And I'm assuming you did the early ones, like on educational theory and all that. Have you done that stuff?
No, I actually haven't yet,
You haven't
but
did it?
I
Okay.
might actually be qualified to skip them.
Oh, okay, then great, because it's memorizing like some of the theories, but like you got to know which educational philosopher like said this thing, and it's it's like whatever. But then you take a test into whatever content area you want to teach, so that's always fun. So
Oh, that's the test I just took. So
that's good. Was it fun? Was it more like trivia?
a lot of it was, there was a number of points where I'm going like, well, actually, you could argue one of these other things. There's a number of points where they have
actually
subjective interpretive answers and want absolutes, which is, contrary to how you should be composing a test for teachers.
Yeah, for sure. Oh man, it was a long time since I took that. I mean, I took it as I was graduating. So anyway,
so that
somebody
was like
said
20 years ago, right? You haven't been
oh.
out of school that long.
I graduated in college 2009. So
really, you're that young?
yeah,
Dude, you're making me feel old.
yeah. I know. I probably wasted at least a year from college. My hang up was I messed around with my minor a bunch of times. I was always going to be a history major. I was going to be like doing coaching, and then I was going to do like Spanish, and I ended up doing geography, which was great because I wanted to do something that I could get another license in teaching. So, do I sound sick? Yes, I am very sick, but so like 2 hours ago, I was in the shower, and of course, I've been watching all the news today, and I'm like, I've been wanting to get people together to talk, history people, to talk about the crazy like current events that are going on, and trying to compare and contrast them with historical events. So, like the things that are happening right now, with this campaign and all this, is it par for the course for American history for things to be going the way they are, or are we in like new territory potentially? And I think that's one of the cool things about history is like we get to look at current events in that scope, and it's fun to do because we know, okay, there have been, let's just, the elephants in the room of the last 2 to 3 weeks have been crazy. We've had a couple of very important Supreme Court cases. Okay, we've had a couple, one especially with the president. We had an assassination attempt. Okay, we've had an incumbent drop at a very late stage. So I thought it'd be fun to talk about if there's things in history and stuff that we can compare this to or contrast this with, and I don't know, get a better picture about it. Maybe use our history brains. We can make predictions. I don't know what's going on.
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind, obviously, we say all the time, maybe history doesn't repeat itself, but it certainly rhymes. There are a lot of rhymes with 1968 with this one. I mean, the assassination, not attempts, but you had the assassinations of Dr. King in April, and then the assassination of Bobby Kennedy in June, who was a candidate for president.
A bunch of civil rights leaders added on to that.
Yeah, 68, you had the incumbent president deciding he wasn't going to run for re-election. Of course, it didn't happen so late, but it did happen when he realized he wasn't going to be able to get the support. And it was also the last time the Democratic convention was in Chicago, which is where it is this year.
Oh, I did not know that was.
It was. Will we have another Chicago scale incident?
Yeah, the last time it was in Chicago, it didn't go well.
Yeah.
And we have another Kennedy.
Yeah,
literally.
Although running as a third party, but for those who don't remember, 1968 in Chicago had quite the riot when it was there. There was a bunch of anti-Vietnam folks, and it was very clearly caused by the police. Like the police attacked people. It wasn't the other way around. There was some violence the other way, but it was absolutely caused by the police, and the Johnson administration proved that. But then years later, they made a movie about this fairly recently. Not too good of a movie, but
which one?
The Trial of the Chicago 7.
Oh, the Chicago
8.
Okay, yeah.
I always mix up the number because one of them got taken out of the case. Bobby Seale.
Right.
But some of them have ended up going through a trial. They turned it into a whole circus. It was quite a crazy event. And so that was turned into a movie. And basically, this was kind of like the coming out party of the new American left.
Interesting. So there's this context. Like the 60s is so interesting. When I teach all world history classes now, but I was teaching US. And I remember the 60s was something like kids could get interested because like everybody's dying, like everyone's getting shot. If you're a civil rights leader, you're a political opponent, somebody is after you and literally trying to execute you. You had the war going on. It was crazy. You had civil rights, you have Black Panthers, you have the Malcolm X versus Martin Luther King, different approaches towards trying to obtain racial equality, whatever. You have a more like the more Gandhi approach, boycott, whatever. Then you have a more like militant approach, and all stuff was happening, and it left such I think long-term effects, especially on political parties, how the political parties work. I don't know if we want to, anyone wants to get in debate about the great party switch and all that stuff, because whatever, he can get some info on that. But whatever dynamics were going on, a lot of that was going on in there. And I don't know, and I'm trying to say if
I wouldn't call it the
in
party
that today,
switch.
are we
party
in the
switch is
midst?
referring to like a whole several decades, you know. It's not,
and I think we're in one of those right now too.
That's what I was going to ask you guys.
If you look back,
in one,
if you look back 10 years ago and then you look ahead 10 years, the parties of 2000 or 2010 completely different than the parties in 2030. I mean, we're in the middle of a major shift in the political parties right now, and Donald Trump's one of the main catalysts for that.
But I wouldn't say that they're switching in terms of political affiliation. They've just moved to more further extremes.
They have, but I also see, like, being somebody who lives here in the Rust Belt, I can see, for example, the working class, even the unions, kind of shifting toward the Republicans. I live in a county, Mahoning County, Ohio, that in my entire nearly 50 years of life never once voted for a Republican for president until 2020. And Donald Trump just barely won this county. No Republican had won this county in 40 some years. And you saw a major union leader speak at the Republican convention.
That was so weird.
Isn't that crazy? That's what I'm saying.
He was saying stuff like we need to pass union, protecting laws and all that. And it's like, whoa, what the?
There's a foreign policy change happening with the two parties as far as the focus of the parties. The Republicans are becoming more isolationist, where they were much more interventionist 20 years ago. So there are some changes happening.
Yeah, but a lot of that is also like there is a very real so instead of it being a party switch that's happening, it's more of like a change in the party system.
Yeah,
because
we're in what, like fifth or sixth one now, something like that.
We're in this. Man, I always forget. Whichever one started in 1980, which is characterized by neoliberalism, and both sides are very much kind of like moving away from neoliberalism, in different ways. But like Biden's actually kept most of Trump's tariffs and everything. So like neoliberalism is kind of on the way out, and interventionism is like, a dead letter in both parties.
Emperor Tigerstar joined. By the way, if you want to come on.
Hey, somebody made a great point that.
But what do you think about this?
J.D. Vance would be one of the first.
There's that one political theory.
First on a ticket with a facial hair in 100 years.
J.D. Vance. Yeah,
has it been that long? Oh my gosh! There's that one political theory of a new political cycle every 40-ish years.
That's about right.
That Reagan began is ending on cue, and we're entering a new one. Or perhaps in hindsight, Trump started a new one. I would agree.
Yeah, I mean that's like when you go to the party system wiki.
Yeah,
it has like a chart that like a flow chart of the various systems and everything, and it has like a section that's just like Trump, and it's like question mark.
According to what I'm looking at now, they've got it as the sixth party system would be 1980 to about 2016, and now we would be entering number 7.
Yeah, and like we basically been in like a lot of historians have called the era that we ever since the 20 ever since the Great Recession, the 2008, whatever that's called, the housing bubble. Ever since the housing bubble, instead of equalizing and dealing with that recession, we instead continued to get more income inequality, which has led a lot of historians to call this the second Gilded Age. And how did that come to an end? With populism and then progressivism.
By the way, I want to make sure
Trump
we
is
propose
populism, right?
anytime we enter a new age or anything, there needs to be like a vote of what we're going to call it. I'm sick of people that have no imagination naming things. Like I want to be on that panel. We need an executive committee of that. I don't want any more stupid things. But hey, a couple super chat questions came in. Okay, so actually this one was first. And this is from an Australian, by the way. So, and I had heard this before. It's about Nancy Pelosi. Okay. Noting reporting shows that Nancy Pelosi is one who ran the phones to get Biden to stand down. And this is where I wanted to add this because I saw this today. Is Nancy Pelosi the most impactful woman in politics of the last 40 years? Woman.
Well, I'd say Hillary was
arguable
more impactful by
Hillary.
a long shot.
Do you think she's had enough impact? Like, you know what I mean? Because she kind of organized the Democratic Party for decades, and kind of became a leader. But yeah, Hillary, I think maybe it's arguable. Thank you for the super chat, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, for 40 years ago, Nancy Pelosi wasn't even a leader in the Democratic Party.
She kind of came about during Bush's administration.
How about this century?
This century?
Still Hillary.
Think so?
Yeah. And the main leader of the Democrats in the beginning of the 21st century was Harry Reid.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Senate, not House, but still. Although he was in the House for what?
Ever
8 years.
Well, maybe these guys, so they're all leaving, right? They're all retiring. Okay, Reed's out, Pelosi, Biden. That's part of the shift too, right? Isn't it? It's part of the new.
Yeah, I don't know how much credit I'd give just to Nancy Pelosi on driving Biden out. I think this was a collective effort by all the Democrats. And you notice that as soon as the announcement came out this afternoon that President Biden was stepping down, how very quickly two things happened. Number one, they all started praising Biden for his selfless act, and they all started immediately lining up behind Kamala Harris. What they don't need or want is a contested convention. They need to go into that convention knowing that Kamala Harris is the nominee and projecting unity. The worst.
What day does it start again?
Contested convention.
What day does it start again?
It's in August. Do
you think that's mostly just because of it's just a time crunch?
A week or two is in August. Never mind.
Yeah.
Do you think because it's a time crunch?
Well, and Kamala Harris, I mean, because she's already on the ticket, I think she has a head start on the fundraising and the connections and all that stuff. The key is going to be her running mate, and I think it's got to be a more moderate, younger Midwesterner, or even I've been saying all day, Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. It's not a Midwesterner, but close enough. I think he's the prime choice. It could also be the governor of North Carolina. I think it's going to be a governor from a Midwestern or a swing state.
Definitely heard Shapiro, even as a candidate, like an actual
candidate. I think Shapiro would be their ideal head candidate for president. Not going to happen, but he would be better than Harris.
There's not enough time. If you had a whole cycle.
Yeah. Maybe. Somebody said Mark Kelly, he'd be a good choice too, but I don't think they need another senator on the ticket.
Yeah, but also in terms of VP, that's going to be very driven by what Kamala wants.
Right. Who can she work with? Who's she going to pair well with? So that's something we can't see. It's easy for us to look and say Shapiro would be great. We don't know what her relationship is with him. So
yeah.
All right. This super chat came through as a history major. By the way, thank you, Stephen. Okay, so I knew we were going to talk about Grover Cleveland and like the spaces between, you know, presidents and whatever. But I'm curious to see how history books are going to treat Grover Cleveland after November in the event we will no longer be the only president to serve new consecutive terms. Like, we're just going to forget him. Like, sorry, that was the only
pretty
thing
forgettable president
we remember about you, Grover, is that as you did that. But I mean, yeah, I mean, you got to rewrite stuff all the time. I mean,
a big thing with Cleveland too, though, is that he's the one Democrat in a span of about 60 years that's all Republicans. So he stands out even more for that reason. Whereas we've kind of been going back and forth for the last 40 years with Republicans and Democrats. So
yeah,
I think long term, Cleveland to me stands out more than Trump would if he got reelected.
I mean, well, one, like literally like study the period, and presidents during that period barely factor into my studies. Like they're so inconsequential. Like for instance, a really famous case, the Lincoln County War. The president did step in and declare, because
that was Hayes, right? Hayes,
yeah, had just passed the Posse Comitatus Act, and so the only way to send in federal troops was to declare an insurrection. And so he did that for the first time ever during the Posse Comitatus Act. Obviously, there've been declarations of insurrection. That's what the Civil War was. But that was directly about it, but it was mostly just like signing off on what was already happening. So it was making military intervention legal, even though he was several weeks late.
Keep going, guys. Sorry, I'm inviting someone else. So
looking at this super chat you have up, Republicans to block ballot access. No, that can only hurt them. They'll look terrible if they try to do that, especially in light of January 6th and the accusations that are already there about them being anti-democratic. They do not want to be seen to be blocking the Democratic nominee from ballots anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fully agree on that. On the Grover Cleveland thing, by the way, like, also in terms of having to like rewrite the way we do stuff because of this election, like one of the questions I got, and I can't be specific because technically I just signed an NDA to not say specific things, but there was one question that was about, like, you know, what has been the source of expanding presidential power, and one of the options was like, oh, if only they had written this, you know, after July 1st, then that would have been the answer rather than the other thing. And it's like, but obviously this test was not written like a couple weeks ago. So
how quickly things change.
Yeah. I mean, and that was literally on, you know, the thing that all social studies teachers end up taking, right? Like, and
right. What'd you say? Sorry, I heard social studies teachers. Okay, I set my link.
Talking about how we will have to rewrite the books because of things from this. I mean, just like if Trump gets elected, we'll have to stop referring to Cleveland as the only intermittent president. Not intermittent, intercalated, I think is the correct term. Intercalated, yeah.
Okay.
You PhDs, I can't keep up with your fancy words.
Actually, that's a thing that I only know because of the Olympics.
What thing I was gonna say? So, like, kids love to ask me that all the time. The big one right now kids ask me about is like, you know, what are they going to say about like COVID, and are they going to talk about that in history books? Kids thought that was really cool, that like they were living through something. And they're like, what are they going to say? And I told them, I said, we don't know yet. We got to see what the impacts are, you know.
2024 is going to be one of those years that we're talking about 100 years. Well, we're not, but people are talking about 100 years from now for sure.
Sure. And there's still a lot that can happen. Yeah. I've seen, we've done videos, you and I, Chris, have done videos recently talking about things and how there's still so much that can happen between, even though it's 100 days now.
Yeah.
That we can, we can still have that. All right. We got another guest, another YouTuber.
Hey, how's it going?
German, what's going on there? Gonna poke somebody.
I'm playing games and I see this stream is happening. That's not fair.
That's all right. I know this is more productive. Well, what were you playing? It depends.
Arcanists.
I haven't played that.
I don't know that. What is that? I don't know what that is.
Long story short, the company that made RuneScape used to have online games back in the day, and they had this one that's kind of like Worms but better, called Arcanists. And then the website died, and then some fans bought the licensing to the game and brought it back on Steam like a week ago. So it's like, oh, cool, this game that's been dead for 10 years is back. I'm gonna nostalgically play that like nonstop for the next several months, and it's free on Steam, so I recommend anyone to try it out.
John, I know
John Reedy. You know John?
I do.
You know John? At $10. Thank you so much, John, for super chat. Okay, says on that note, why did they wait so long into the cycle to do this? A lot of people have been saying Joe was not capable for years. Did it really only just click now? Is it just convenient to move on? Okay, here's my immediate thing. Don't you guys think we are all going to go back to that debate?
Yeah.
Wasn't that the catalyst?
Is that not the most consequential debate in history now?
That's going
How can it not be?
I would think, depending on how this goes, I literally think that could show up in a book, like a history book, like in even a common one about, things that changed elections is, all this momentum changed after a debate, one debate, and go down in debate history as something of major consequence.
Yeah, but I would like to push back on most consequential. Instead of superlative, and
sure.
Douglas v. Lincoln. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we've got a most
Lincoln
important
Douglas
date for each century.
was a Senate race.
Yeah, it was, but it ended up having consequences that led directly to the Civil War. It was the split in the Democratic Party in 1860 was directly due to what's called the Freeport Doctrine, where in Freeport, Illinois, Douglas had said that, like, look, even though the Supreme Court said it, it's still up to the states to enforce it. And, all the Southerners were like, actually really against states' rights. This is one of the really funny things when you hear Southerners today talking about states' rights. It's like, yeah, but the Democrats split because they didn't want states' rights. And that split is what allowed Lincoln to be elected. Yeah. Hence secession in December of 1860 started. It was very direct.
That was one of my favorite things to talk about teaching like U.S. history is what has been the impact when you actually have more than two candidates.
Yeah.
Because people talk about the two-party system and how it sucks. So like, okay, let's look at history and look at times where they weren't, or there were more than one. And you look at what the impact of that was. Because like, all right, if you were to add up all those votes that didn't vote for Lincoln, if you just do the math, he loses. If they could unify against one, maybe that would have been possible. I don't know. Maybe some people would have went to Lincoln or something, but like it ends up, because of the way we structure things, winner take all for the most part. It's like, you end up throwing votes away, and it's like discouraging.
Some of the most consequential elections in history were ones like that. I mean, Bill Clinton got elected twice because of a three-man race.
That one's a much more of an argument as to like whether or not the votes for Perot would actually have gone for Bush. But like the other one that's really obvious in terms of splitting the vote is 1828 and 1912.
Yeah.
Those are
1912. Woodrow Wilson. Yeah, Wilson.
Yeah, but like,
hey, what do you think of President Wilson?
But if you when it comes to like debating over like how good is it for parties to split up, it's like, well, do you like Abraham Lincoln or do you like Woodrow Wilson?
One of the things people are asking right now, like people I've seen today are like, hey, it's RFK's time. Okay, so let's look at today.
He's not even on the ballot in most states. That's the problem. He's on the ballot in 6 states.
Is that it? Is it too late?
Last I heard it was 6. It may be more now.
I thought
let's say hypothetically was. So like historically speaking, what would you think that would do? Who would that be taking from? Is it just Democrats that are anti-vaxxers. That's that's like
I don't
the one
I
I
don't
heard.
think there's going to be enough of. I don't think he's going to be enough.
Not
of
going to
a
matter at
factor.
all.
I mean, look at like basically every third party ever. You know, everybody likes to say that like Bush won in 2000 because of Nader, and like no, not like if you look at the statistics. Statistically speaking, that wasn't enough of a poll to have changed anything. The real question comes down to Florida, and we don't even actually know if Bush actually won Florida. It was just kind of like, you know, the Supreme Court just decided, okay, just stop. We're done counting.
The dangly hole punches that they were like debating on if they count.
Yeah,
I remember that. Tigerstar, you got anything on that? What do you think the impact of RFK could be, if any at all?
What if the 6 states that he's on the ballot just happen to be the Rust Belt swing states? And so he just wins those and then nobody wins. Although no, I don't actually think it's actually going to make any difference.
Well, if the Electoral College is not a majority, then the decision goes to the House.
Yeah. Where lose. Okay.
Kennedy's on the ballot in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 6 that he's met the signature threshold. There's 4 he's already on the ballot. So 10 total.
Is it simply then because he's just not getting enough support to get on it, or like what's holding him back?
So it's New Hampshire, North Carolina, Michigan, Iowa, Nebraska, Idaho, Utah. There you go. You can vote for him. Nevada, California, Hawaii.
Yeah, most states have a signature requirement from resident voters in order to bring in a new party onto the ballot. Previous parties get automatically renewed as long as they maintain that. This is most states. Each state has their own laws on this, and it's up to the states to make those laws. But he's basically running as a new party, so he has to get all of those signatures to qualify.
I don't know. Let's see if this actually. Okay, Brian, thank you for the $5 super chat. So just want to point out that Trump could be the first candidate to lose the popular vote 3 times. No,
wouldn't be first.
More than that.
William Jennings Bryan would like a word.
Yeah. Maybe like coming that close.
What was the socialist
in the? Or you could say Henry Clay.
Oh yeah, well Henry Clay, 3 times. Yeah, he only ran thrice, right?
I think 4 times.
4? Is that more than Brian? Not Brian. Not Brian. The one that was in prison in 1920.
Not Debs, is it?
Debs, yeah, Debs. Yeah. Because Debs ran like constantly for like what 5 elections or something like that.
That would be another one too, if for whatever reason Trump does run or gets in jail, prison, you'd have another one legitimate candidate. I mean, Debs, I forgot. He was still single digits, I think, in votes.
Yeah, but I mean,
but it would be
Clay
a lot
and William Jennings Bryan were the major party. They were the major opponent to lose 3 times.
Yeah. Brian only ran 3 times, and I guess Clay ran 4.
3. Clay ran 3.
There was, looking it up, there was like a 4th time he tried to seek the nomination, but he didn't get the nomination.
Yeah, he tried to get the nomination a number of times actually for the Whig Party. He was kind of the Whig leader for most of its existence, but like he kept losing in the general. So,
so just a little context here as far as obviously we know polling doesn't necessarily mean a lot, but if you look at identical polls where they polled just obviously it was Trump versus Biden, and then add the third party candidates into it as well, the margin doesn't change. So, for example, in Michigan, Trump versus Biden was 49-42 by the Detroit Free Press. You add Kennedy, West, and Stein, it's still Trump +7, even with those others in there. So, basically, it's a wash.
Yeah. And I think with the chaos that is resulting now, but like already was happening in terms of the Biden campaign and now Harris campaign, is practically guaranteed Trump's win. And in a way that, I mean, look at 1968 as an example, last time this happened. And then there too, the Democrats were in disarray, and the Republicans swept. The only, in fact, didn't Wallace actually make more states than McGovern? It was McGovern, right?
Humphrey.
I don't think it was more states, but he did win like 5 states in the Deep South.
Yeah, in the Deep South.
And I don't know. I think it depends on if they're going to be unified by the convention or not. I think there's a good chance that'll happen. I'd be hesitant to compare this to 1968 just because, like, conventional wisdom has been failing for the past 8 years.
Well, it's also
what was true in 1968 is definitely not true today.
It's also, we're just like, yeah, times are in absolute chaos. But like, one, not as chaotic as even the last presidential election. If you remember, that was during the pandemic. There's George Floyd stuff going on. We were still in Afghanistan. There was a lot more going on that time around.
Well, and think about how, like, Trump literally got shot and the polls haven't changed. Like, I really think that as long as there is a relatively unified convention and the actual nitty-gritty of the election is Trump versus not Trump, then it'll just come down to the wire.
It's going to come down to voter turnout. Like the main
100%.
thing, the main thing is not like whether or not voters' minds are changed. It's whether or not voters are willing to go out and vote.
And that's, I think, why when it was Trump versus Biden, Biden couldn't win, because Biden was never going to be able to overcome that. Trump's voters were going to be more motivated than Biden's were, because I think there's a lot of angry Trump voters that see this as like they've got to go out and kind of redeem themselves. And I will say this, a lot of people have been commenting about January 6th as a campaign issue for the Democrats. That doesn't help
Nobody
them.
Cares.
That'll motivate the base, but that ain't going to do anything to win the votes that they need to get the election. I just don't see that as something to run on.
And I think something else to consider, that especially considering that the average voter is not like us, where we pay too close attention to everything. Kamala, assuming it's going to be her, will have the benefits of being from the same ticket, so she can take credit for all the good things under the Biden administration, but without having the personal negative baggage of the Biden administration.
Good point.
So to the average voter, they could be like, well, I guess she's responsible for this and that, but she didn't do the bad things like the inflation. Like, I don't know.
Them being on the same ticket is also a very important point to note, is that I've seen a number of people already trying to claim that, they're going to be undemocratic by refusing the votes of the primary. It's like, well, the primary was for a Biden-Harris ticket, so they still nominated Harris.
Yeah.
They just nominated Harris to the vice presidency. What happens when the president drops out? The vice president becomes president.
And they didn't.
That's constitutional.
I mean, you can argue they didn't force that change. He is releasing his delegates, which means they can vote for somebody else now.
Yeah.
All right, look at this. Thank you, Inquisitor. So on the topic of Harris, so do you think the Democrats could gain a potential edge based on Harris's relatively clean record, Trump's treachery, as he says here, on January 6th, and the fact that the perpetrator of certain events as GOP? So it goes back to, I think, what everyone's been saying is that's not going to flip votes. We know that votes, people don't flip very much.
Well,
it's activating non-voters. We still live in a place where half of people vote. It's activating non-voters. And one thing I think we know by now pretty clearly is that January 6th or court cases or anything like that have, to this point, have no effect on the base that already exists. They don't care. Like, people don't care about that. But what you're going to start seeing, here's the thing I think you're start seeing, you're already seeing it right now. There are people digging hard into Harris's past. As a prosecutor, they're going to go after all the people that she went after.
Yep.
People that were smoking weed, and they were throwing them behind bars. They're like, it's about to get really ugly. So this clean record, people find something.
I've been
That's
saying
why I
this all
grimaced
along.
when you said clean record. Like, as a Californian, I've actually had direct interaction with Kamala Harris when she was. She called me. She called me angry about something. I don't want to get into details, but basically it had to do with a local historical thing that now I was working at a museum at
you
the
have
time.
beef with the candidate?
Yeah, Not actually.
So the thing I've been saying a lot,
and I also told her to go that's not what I do. Go away. Have him do it, not me. It was for a contractor to basically do the work of a contractor for them, and it's like no. Anyway, that's what he's being paid for. That's what he does, not me.
Yeah. So the thing I've been saying all along is you can't look at these hypothetical polls, like the polls that show like Michelle Obama would destroy Trump. Well, yeah, because she's not running. Anytime you have candidate X, they're going to do great because they're a hypothetical. Now that Kamala Harris is going to be in that seat, she's going to be in that position. Now the scrutiny really starts. Now the opposition research really starts. You can't look at any polls that have been out about how Trump would do against Harris. Come to me again after there's a VP nominee, after they've had their convention. Let's see at the end of August how this thing's starting to look, and then we might have a sense of where it's going.
And wait for the October surprise.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, Tigerstar, what you got?
And also the thing to consider, the problem with Michelle Obama running is that my entire generation blamed her for school cafeterias sucking. So she would absolutely lose the young vote. They'll remember her for taking the soda vending machines out of our schools and making us miserable.
I've lived through that as a teacher. I did. Kids thought it was very unfair that the teacher's lounge, we got the sugary stuff. But out in the cafeteria, those machines were all the Coke Zeros and stuff. And I just would flaunt it around, like, all right, I got the real one, or something. But
it even ruined a local election in my school where we had, like, our cafeteria used to have a soft serve ice cream machine, and you could get like a Solo cup's worth of ice cream for $1. And so everyone loved it, but then it broke down, and the guy running for the president of our school, a guy named Spencer, said he ran like, I will make sure that we direct funds to get a new soft serve ice cream machine. But it was the year when the regulations and what they could serve in the cafeteria changed, so he couldn't bring it back. And so literally everyone ragged on him, like, you lied, you failed, and then he just instantly became the most hated person in school. Well, it was terrible.
It was Socrates, I think, that literally said, between someone voting for the doctor who gives you painful treatments and the candy man that gives you ice cream and candy, generally people are gonna vote for the candy man, because he's like, I don't limit your freedoms and I give you this stuff. And the doctor is like, hey, that stuff is bad for you, and I'm sorry I give you guys painful treatments, but you got to trust me, it's for your own good. And he said that was his criticism with democracy, by the way. I just thought of that when I heard about ice cream. So,
and also, I just got curious real quick, and I just realized I think Trump is technically the oldest nominee ever.
With Biden out of the race, yeah, I think he probably would be.
78?
Because Biden was 77 when he was nominated.
Very different in terms of the energy and all that, though, right? But even 4 years ago, Biden is very different,
Yeah.
I
mean,
we got a VTH shout out on this one.
So,
but it says thoughts on the Kennedys.
Asking me about Napoleon's Marshals. I told
VTH
them
Napoleon Marshals. What is that?
It's the Epic History TV series that it's become almost a meme at this point. People asking me to do a reaction to that series because I get every day I get comments. So it's interesting to think about. Bill Clinton was first elected 30 years ago. George W. Bush was first elected 24 years ago, and those two and Trump were all born the same summer.
That's amazing that you have these people that are, been out for so long, but are older.
June, July, and August of 1946, we had presidents born.
What happened? I need to bring on an astrologist for that and see what was going on that year. What were the
Gen X
alignments of the planets?
Obama was super close to Gen X, but he's not there. But JD Vance is Gen X.
Harris is still technically a boomer.
Yeah, she's too old.
What are we 1 year away from Mr. Beast? Didn't he say?
Oh God,
you would
no.
What is he?
But can I just say, as someone who lives in the Ozarks, which might as well be like Appalachia 2.0, like, JD Vance, please, no more JD Vance.
Oh,
Hillbilly
okay.
Elegy. Oh my god.
Go for it.
Like if you live in like the Ozarks or Appalachia or any of like the hillbilly coded areas, you have strong opinions about J.D. Vance in this book.
Bender from Futurama actually decided the 2020 election. Okay. All right, we got yeah, the Clay family name has been spoken. The Fat Electrician has been disturbed. Great to see you all talking about current events.
Different Clay.
Yeah, different one. By the way, viewers, hopefully you know all of these YouTubers. Make sure you follow all of them. You see their names on here, so log me to history.
Tokyo Scarab says Ohio's not the Midwest. It's not about where it's at on the map. It's about culture. And culturally, we are Midwest.
I would say geographically, they're Midwest too.
Yeah. I mean, it's like literally the beginning of the old Northwest. Like
we were the Northwest Territory. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly what the Midwest is.
The real fake Midwestern states are Oklahoma and Kentucky. It's not happening. You're not joining the Midwest.
I did a mistake once of telling a Texan they were the Midwest, and oh man, I didn't even
Texas keeps on trying to say that they're Southwestern. It's like, look, you have the Panhandle and you have El Paso, so yeah, those are Southwestern. But if you're saying anything east of San Antonio is Southwestern, you're wrong. You are just dead wrong.
By the way, super chatters, I promise I'll read all of them, but I do want to get to some specific things that I had kind of prepared that I want to ask about. So first, okay, so let's talk about this point. You guys know of elections where a candidate change has been like a very viable candidate change has happened this close to the election? That's what I wanted to pick your guys' brains about.
If we count the change from alive to dead, then you can include Grant and Greeley.
Well, here's what I'll say is if you go back to before...
we were discussing this. Wasn't it that Greeley was actually died after the election?
Was it after the election?
Yeah, I think we figured that out. We actually had like a discussion like this last week. Surprisingly enough.
There are plenty of elections where nobody knew who the nominee was at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Because most of the conventions, I mean, 1880 is a great example. James Garfield wasn't even one of the people being considered for the Republican nomination in 1880. He went in supporting John Sherman from Ohio and he had just been elected. He was elected senator from Ohio.
Well, at that point, primaries didn't even exist.
Yeah. And so anything before direct like primary voting happened, all kinds of examples of surprises coming out of conventions. But since the primary system as it exists today, we haven't had anything like this.
The closest would be 1968. I looked that up earlier. It was late March when Johnson dropped out. So that was actually during the primaries.
Yeah.
Just like this.
It was right after New Hampshire.
But it was early in the primary process. I don't think we have any actual primaries to go, right?
Now, no. Oh, no. Yeah. This is we're done with the primary process.
Yeah. So this is the first I can, because primaries really didn't start until basically 1896.
Yeah.
And by Roosevelt's election in 1904, there were only like 8 states that had primaries or something like that. So it was a very small proportion of the states, even at that point. So it took a while before primaries became a thing. And even then, like with the Democrats, for instance, in 1968, the primaries were basically a suggestion, you know?
Yeah.
Like there's a reason why Humphrey, this like nothing burger of a candidate, became the Democratic nominee in that election.
I got a wild thing to think about here. So this ties into so we don't have too many examples of what we just saw with someone, especially someone dropping out, like you guys mentioned, like people assassinating, but doing that. But we're in uncharted waters because we had never ever presidents with this type of age before. We had presidents die and whatever. But anyway, here's one for you. So this is going to tie into the next thing. It's about assassination attempt that just happened, and also just historically with assassinations. To stay on modern topic, let's say assassination last week happened and it worked. Donald Trump is dead. Does Biden stay in the race? Does that change in any way Biden staying in the race?
Yeah, I think so. And the main thing that Biden was very clear. You know, he was wanting to run specifically against Trump. Like that was his whole shtick. So you know, why bother if there isn't if Trump is gone?
Well, then wouldn't that be more of a reason for him to leave?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
No, that's what I'm saying. Is that
I think Biden definitely still drops out. In fact, I think it's more likely because I think
you got a young candidate.
Biden does worse against whoever Trump's replacement is, because now the Republican Party can handpick their successor. Because you're days from the convention at that point. It's an open convention,
and it's probably not JD Vance, right?
No, it's not JD Vance.
Not JD Vance.
No,
right?
It's gosh, who is it? I don't even know where they'd start with that.
Well, I mean, in both cases, it'd be before the convention, so like it would really be anyone.
I'd really push against the use of the term "is there" because there's too much, definitive of a statement. We're talking very hypothetical and just kind of.
But it's fun to talk about.
Yeah, but we're talking about fiction. You know,
Nikki Haley. You go back to what's his name?
Vivek come back, or Chris Christie, or like any of these guys.
Any of the people that ran, would probably be most likely.
They're all
Jimmy
back.
Carter. You've beat cancer. You've beat sunstroke, and somehow you're winning against death and hospice. Can you serve your country one last time?
I had a couple of people say that in my stream earlier today.
I just thought that'd be
Jimmy Carter in there.
I'm just imagining like the Grim Reaper has a scythe and he keeps trying to lift it and goes, "I can't do it. He's too nice."
Okay, now, all of us, I saw. I didn't look at if you did, Tigerstar, but I think tweet a little bit about like maybe what the effects of the assassination attempt will do, and a lot of people, I think even myself, got a little hyperbolic where, I thought it would help his chances.
I think
the reason for that, it would embolden the base more, maybe give more sympathy for whatever, like for people that aren't there, but also, and it depends on how you trust the polls. We'd already discussed that the polls haven't really changed for that, but do we trust that kind of thing? First off, before we dive into the history of like assassinations, what do you guys think about assassination attempt helping like a candidate?
Didn't do anything for Theodore Roosevelt.
Well, it absolutely did do more for Theodore Roosevelt. The problem was he was splitting a vote, you know.
Right.
And it did help him become retroactively, I think, more respective. Like today, like people talk about it, like how cool he was that it did that. Didn't matter and
didn't win him the election.
That's largely what I said about Trump, was that he was like, especially that picture, as he's going down the stairs and everything, with the flag in the background. That picture right there will serve to recuperate his image from January 6th. Maybe at the time I was saying like for the election, maybe not for the election, but it might bring out more people to vote for him who would otherwise have stayed home.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's what matters. It's not like flipping votes. It's about it's about
activating non-voters.
Yeah,
I had people say that to me. I was probably gonna maybe vote for Trump. I didn't really want to. I definitely am now. Like I talked to several people who said that.
Yeah, but those are people who are already leaning in that direction, though. I don't think it's necessarily gonna like win people over.
No. But like Cypher said, it's gonna guarantee it. This is an election that's all about who motivates the vote. You're not going to change a lot of minds. It's who's going to get their electorate out on that date.
What if it was a week before the election?
It's
and that who knows?
What if it's a week?
There's your October surprise if that happens.
Yeah,
because like, or that's a
because the counterbalance is that like the amount of people like that I've met that said they would like vote for a can of tuna over Trump. Like that seems to be just as strong of like a countermeasure against anybody who would be motivated.
But those people were already going to do that.
But that's what I'm saying though. Like
think about all the people who are demotivated.
Right.
All the people who are like, I don't, they are both bad. I don't like any candidate. It's like, yeah, but like one tried to do a coup. The other is just an old man.
Okay. What
Yeah,
about
only had compulsory
assassinations
voting.
that really did help? What would you guys cite that you think that have an impact other than just maybe a little more sympathy? Assassination attempt.
I was asked this earlier. I can't think of any that changed the outcome.
Yeah.
And like the usual example is like Reagan getting shot, getting sympathy. But when I looked at the polling, he jumped 10% in like his approval polling for in like 2 months after the assassination. But by the end of the year, it was like 20 points lower.
But he was only in
before the
office for 2
assassination.
months
Yeah.
when he was shot. So
Yeah, so it was
I
his
know,
first
but that's
100
usually the
days,
example of like a bump. Like even the most famous bump of an assassination didn't last.
Here's the
very long.
thing that absolutely did work in terms of the Reagan assassination and sympathy for it is the tax package that he passed in his first 100 days absolutely ran through Congress as soon as he
new ones.
as soon as he got shot. Like that was going to stall in committee otherwise. And you know, there's that famous quote when he's going in for surgery because one of the bullets lodged near his heart, and he says, you know, well,
I hope you're all Republicans.
I hope you're all Republicans, and the doctor says,
we are today.
We're all Republicans today. You know, like that's the kind of solidarity that came behind that, and like it did move the needle quite a bit.
That's a great point. If we're thinking about assassinations in general, not an election, but certainly political impact. Yeah, I would have to agree with that.
Well, actually, Mr. President, I'm a monarchist. Wait, what?
Now I'm going to step back from U.S. history and get into my area here. But assassinations and assassination attempts are way more common in other countries. Here, it's
assassination attempts are actually really common here. It's just
like
we forget most of them. Like Biden's had like what 6 assassination attempts or something like that. Trump had
2 or 3.
Trump had more than 2 or 3. He had one in 2020 that like somebody actually like tried to run up the freaking thing and tackle him. Didn't have any weapon, but you know.
See, that's the thing. I think this is the first one we've seen in a long time that was serious enough that it was
that drew blood.
There was a good chance that he could have been killed. I mean, the last one that I can remember that was that close and that serious, you have to go back probably to George W. Bush when a guy rolled a grenade on stage in Georgia, in the country Georgia, when him and the president of Georgia were on stage, but it didn't go off.
Wait, you don't consider the shoe throw like a legitimate?
That was character assassination.
whatever you want to say about George W. Bush, he handled that like a boss. He really did.
We want to talk about assassination attempts helping like poll numbers. The amount of people like, damn, he's got good reflexes. I like him.
So like, and I was kind of thinking about this. I forgot where I even maybe wrote about it, but like, what places in the world where you do have this, like assassination attempts, and ours being fairly low. Now we can say that our increased security, we have pretty incredible security for the most part for this, and but that it's showing that democracy, people feel that democracy works in the United States, that you can legitimately remove somebody you think is a threat through voting, where in other countries people may feel things are way more dictatorial, so that assassinating somebody is like a legitimate and maybe the only option that you have. So is it a testament to, we love to rag on our democracy and our system, but that in the big scope of things, it's actually pretty functional?
Maybe, but I think it goes back, just my gut reaction goes back to what you said in the beginning of that, which is I think our leaders probably have better protection than most countries do, just because of the resources that we have available to us to protect them.
Yeah, that's a massive difference.
So, and again, a lot of that goes historically.
Just thinking in my lifetime about assassinations in other places that have been successful. I mean, obviously, you had a former prime minister in Japan a few years ago. You had a candidate in was it Pakistan, who Benazir Bhutto, who was assassinated. She was a
Haiti,
former prime minister. Huh?
Haiti, I want to say, didn't that? Anyway, but
you had the president of Egypt when I was a kid who was assassinated, Anwar Sadat.
Anwar, yeah.
Gaddafi, technically.
Gaddafi, yeah.
I was just looking at because there was a UK prime minister who was assassinated.
That was. I've been to that spot in Westminster Hall where he was shot. You can see
Spencer Percival.
Yeah,
I had to look him up.
Only one.
But what's because UK prime ministers have like a lot more access to the public.
True. Yeah.
But this is the only one that actually successfully was assassinated. Mind you, Downing Street was certainly a target during the Troubles. But what's interesting in terms of popularity when we're talking about this in other nations, he was a Tory, and the Tories remained in power for decades after that. And really, they only fell out of power when they fell apart as a party.
Mm-hmm.
There was when the Whigs took over. There was
and that assassination happened in Parliament. I mean, it was right outside the doors of the House of Parliament.
So
how well defended is 10 Downing Street?
Oh, you'll see. That's the one place in the UK you will see lots of automatic weapons.
Okay, because I've never been to London. Like I've never seen that, but it's such a quaint little like. All right, I'm just like on this normal street. You know what I mean?
Main street, but like from Westminster Abbey down toward 10 Downing Street, past like the cenotaph and everything. And there's a huge gate in front of Downing Street. You can't even access Downing Street to get down to where 10 is.
Yeah, don't you have
and
to
then
be
there's
like
lots
pressed?
of guys with big guns right out in front.
Don't you have to be pressed to even get it on to get near the
yeah, you can't get
door?
onto Downing Street at all unless you can get past security there.
Which in a way actually is less access than we have for the president, because you can go tour the White House, the afternoon of, and you're just given a tour.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes you'll just run into the president while doing that. That happens all the time.
Yeah, to see him there.
Yeah,
right, I think Mr. Beat's going to join us soon.
Oh,
good
way. So I definitely want to get his perspective on all these questions that we've had. But let me go back to a couple because there's a couple of good comments here on the super chats here. Let me just kind of see. He has no time to pick up where he left off. If Trump wins, he can't do what he wants because he has to rebuild what Biden did, and I don't think he has enough time. Can't just pick up where they left off. Now, every president that has ever run has always said they're going to pick up the mess of the last person. So, like, it's literally what they all say. Now, how many changes actually happen? I mean, it's pretty amazing. I don't think people understand how much things actually change the same, and how many people think just things radically change if like a president's elected. But no, I think things are a lot more bipartisan than you think. And I think, and even Trump said this when he was in office that first time, was he learned that the president doesn't have nearly all that much power that you really might think you do.
Yeah, we focus on the big ticket stuff.
Thanks,
but even like the Supreme Court, most Supreme Court cases are overwhelmingly bipartisan. They're almost always unanimous, but it's those really loud ones that we talk about that are divisive that get all the attention. Same thing with Congress. Most stuff Congress does agree on. It's the really contentious stuff. And no matter who's elected president, you're going to have a sharply divided Senate. So it's going to be hard to get some things done.
With pork barrel stuff, Congress tends to be a lot less bipartisan. But also something I'd like to point out is that Trump and Biden, while, huge personalities, and yes, they have major divergent policy goals, there's a lot of stuff that they deeply agree on and won't change. There's a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that Biden has kept that Trump did.
Mm-hmm.
So there isn't much resetting needing to happen, despite all the stuff with like the Project 2025 stuff. In reality, Trump can pretty much start off where he left off.
By the way,
hey there, Matt.
Hey, you guys here?
Yeah,
we needed a buff guy in here.
Oh, geez.
No, I'm just kidding.
To pick up where we left off with
go
that,
ahead.
and I'm sure Matt will be able to jump right in. But if we're talking about the change, I think a biggest immediate change where a new president can have an impact is foreign policy. That's much less dependent on Congress. So especially with the things that are going on, Gaza, Ukraine, Iran, North Korea, things like that, there can be an immediate impact there.
Sure. I was going to ask, would you guys consider foreign policy to be one of the more bipartisan issues for the most part?
Yes.
I think so. I mean, I would think so.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it doesn't stay that way. Maybe as it goes on, maybe that changes, especially when it comes to wars.
Well,
one group might want to pull out quicker than the other or something like that.
Well, there's one foreign policy issue that is also a domestic policy issue that the candidates are as divergent on as possible, and that's immigration. And realize a lot of immigration is negotiated with foreign powers. Like all the stuff with the border, for instance, that's a border. There's two sides, and everything we do about it has to be through within treaty stipulations and that absolutely is something that Trump wants to change. I don't know how much can happen, but there is that essential piece of policy that of foreign policy that Trump wants to change. There's also the whole Muslim ban thing that he probably wants to try to reintroduce. I don't know how well he can do that, but there was that last time around.
There's also a difference on how much each party wants to support Ukraine, it seems. I don't know how much there's a difference between like populist rhetoric versus Republicans in Congress necessarily, because that could also be different. But
did it start that way?
Ukraine and NATO seem to be.
That has been the most surprising thing to me in all of this. I've been really surprised by the Republicans, at least in Congress and the very vocal ones on Ukraine.
Party shift.
I would not have predicted that. That is a shift.
That's I think the militarism and aspect of foreign wars.
Republicans are shifting isolation.
Way more isolationism now.
Yeah,
coming from the party.
Mm-hmm. But they're not that way in terms of Israel.
True.
So it's
more bipartisan or not? Or
support for Israel is pretty bipartisan.
Well, that's because it hits home.
Like obviously, there's a lot of like Democrats, especially the more left-leaning Democrats like AOC and them, who are very anti sending weapons to Israel. But generally, it's a pretty bipartisan thing.
AOC, not so much. Kind of been surprised she hasn't quite been as. She's a little more on the Biden side than the rest of that.
I think that's more strategic. Her she's spoken against the genocide there.
It does seem like it's changing over the weeks, but
yeah.
So I don't know, Mr. B. What do you think? What else do you think are more bipartisan issues that get support from both sides historically?
I would say mostly the 5 main jobs of the president are just carrying out the laws that are already in place. And so I think a lot of laws that are already in place. It's not like a president comes in and like, I'm not going to enforce that law anymore. Usually
they do that all the time.
No, absolutely not. No, most of the time presidents keep the same policies. In fact, that's one of the fears about Trump, is that for the first time, maybe ever, you'd have a president come in and completely dismantle the executive, state, like the bureaucratic state. I mean, that's actually a real fear if you look at the worries of Project 2025. Mm-hmm. Whereas like the vast majority of presidents go in and they kind of keep the wheels turning. So like I would say that if you look at the actual bureaucracy, that doesn't normally change that much. Once government grows, it kind of stays. Like the fact that there are a lot of Republicans talking about getting rid of the Department of Education, for example. Like that's a radical thing. Like that's
been something they've talked about for decades, though. I mean, they've really never been serious in pursuing it, but it's always been kind of a talking point.
a talking point, but now it seems like legit that it could happen, you know. So
what was the 3 departments thing that the former governor of Texas said during one of the primaries? It was like education, energy, and he couldn't remember the third one or something like that.
That was the guy that replaced Bush. I forget his name.
Rick Perry.
Rick Perry. Yeah, he was in the cabinet, wasn't he?
Yeah. Like,
he was given like one of the jobs he wanted to get rid of by Trump, I think.
Well, Ron Paul came in and corrected him. Ron Paul, I think, has had a huge influence on the Republican Party. You guys were mentioning isolationism. I think the better word is non-interventionism. But like you just look at his impact on the modern Republican Party, because it's kind of been amazing to see their change, even in the last 5-10 years. You know, it's just astounding.
Yeah. So, Mr. B, with the beginning of what we were talking about how are we in a party shift right now?
I think so. Yeah,
a new party system. Yeah.
Well, I would like to also point out we're always in a party shift. Like it's never not.
But like now we can really feel it and see it, and it's popular.
Perhaps a better way to phrase it would be: are we in a new party system?
Yes. Right. I think we're definitely in the midst of that. Yeah, probably 2016. We're going to look back and say is the beginning of a new party system.
I agree. So we're now in the 7th party system.
Yep.
Which is basically, I think it's a new era of populism, for lack of a better word. I know that word is kind of like means different things to different people, but I think generally we've seen on both the left end of the spectrum and right end of the spectrum, the voices that are the loudest, that are the most influential, are the ones that say, we are fed up with the elites. We are fed up with the status quo. Let's change a bunch of stuff.
And that's the basic definition of populism, is that you are trying to remove some sort of establishment is the main word that you're looking for. Like if you're trying to remove some sort of establishment that is preventing good change, then that's what populism is. And that establishment can be basically anything, and populism can come from any direction, but that's the main thing.
Yeah.
All we need is for one of the candidates to proclaim bringing back the gold standard, and then it'll be complete.
It can't be populism if it's going back to the gold standard. We need bimetallism.
That's true.
There you go. Silver, free silver.
Somehow we're suddenly back in the 1890s.
Tell me what you think of this. So,
will not hang us on a cross of gold.
I think 2016 might mark a pretty important year, I think, in philosophy shift, whatever we want to call it. We haven't been calling it party shift. And you know how people often talk about in elections that people elect somebody as a response to the previous president. Mm-hmm. And, I think that happens. Biden as a response to Trump or whatever you want to say. But I remember having this conversation with someone with Trump and coming in 2016. So he's after Obama. Was he really a response to Obama? My argument more was he was a response to even the Republican Party. It was
to Bush and Obama.
It was a response to everything, the whole system about career politicians. And it's like an election that it really was not a response to the previous person. It was a response to the entire status quo. And that can mark that. And within the Republican Party, because they've, again, changed so much. I mean, you guys remember 2016 and how, the Trump support was so small in those at the beginning of that.
We were talking earlier about
they all bought in eventually.
About splitting the electorate and about how 4- and 5-man presidential race. That's a great example. You had 17 Republicans running for that nomination.
So many,
if there had been 3, Trump never gets close. He never gets close. He got that nomination because there were so many other candidates
that no one liked, and they were all status quo guys. They were
his support was the strongest in a field of very weak candidates that were
headlines. The second place was Ted Cruz, and while he's a little more establishment than Trump, he was still at the time considered one of the more fringe ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also Ted Cruz was kind of famous for everyone hating him. Like that was just kind of like famously everyone hated him
because his dad was involved in the Kennedy assassination.
But like Trump also functioned on pulling headlines and staying in the news.
But that's what you needed to do in a field that big.
Yeah.
I don't think like candidates knew you could act the way and use the rhetoric that he did, where, you know, you have the 12 people and you'd like make fun of them. Like, you know, like you could have not that traditional decorum. And I guess we found out that no, you can do that. In fact, there's a whole part of the population that probably didn't vote for. I've wondered, I want to look at the stats for that, but how many brand new first time voters, like how many people had not voted that could have voted in presidential elections, voted for maybe the first time for him? So activating that huge group we have of people that don't vote, is that where he got the support? Because it didn't seem like it was from the traditional Republican supporters that you've had forever.
I know this is anecdotal, but I'll never forget the day before the election in 2016, there was an NPR story or something that they were interviewing somebody who had never voted before in his entire life. And he was in his 40s and he was like enthusiastically voting for Trump. Mm-hmm. And that really that made me think right then and there. I was like, yeah, I think he might pull this off. I mean, not only that, like we had looked at the economic data in my economics classes that day as well. And I was like, if you use economics, a lot of times using the unemployment rate going up or down and the inflation rate going up and down compared to the year prior, you can predict who will win the presidency as well. And so we often do that. And so that was another like, holy crap, Hillary Clinton's going to lose. I just remember thinking it was just so shocking to me that could happen. Mm-hmm. You know, it really did. I think in a way, the Democratic Party is still 8 years later, still like adjusting to the shock of Trump. Just like,
did not see it coming at all. That was the most cocky, like delegation of people and that thought it would be like a landslide.
That was the year that I realized that I really had no clue, because I was so sure Trump would never get near that nomination. And when he got the nomination, I truly believed that he was the one person the Republicans could nominate that would lose to Hillary Clinton. Like, to me, especially because at the time John Kasich was our governor, and that was who I voted for in the Republican primary. And I thought Kasich was the safe choice, and I thought he would easily beat Hillary. And then when Trump got the nomination, I thought there's no way he can beat her. And then he did. And I mean, obviously we know she got the popular vote, but you know, that's when I realized that I really just didn't understand the American electorate at all.
Yeah, like at least for me, and I know like it's anecdotal and it doesn't apply to everywhere, but having grown up in the Bible Belt, and like my church was pretty divided politically, like down the middle. It was Methodist, so it was like half liberal, half conservative, stuff like that. But the amount of times that I would hear at that church or from your local Rush Limbaugh types on the radio, on the Christian radio stations and things like that, constantly mentioning that Clinton is the Antichrist, Clinton is the Antichrist, or some variation of that way. There were a lot of people that even if they didn't like Trump, they just saw Clinton as like a worse demon. So
that rhetoric was very hot. Yeah,
because like, and that rhetoric had been building up since the original Clinton presidency. So it's not like it was just for that election cycle. Even like it was deep rhetoric.
Yeah,
and there was also like for instance, I was basically going to be a single issue voter in 2016 because one, I was living in California at the time, so it didn't matter which way I voted, it was going blue, right? And in fact, I did not vote for Hillary in that election. But my vote didn't matter. I didn't vote for Trump either. But before that, I was basically going to vote Republican on one thing that has basically nothing to do with the presidency as like a policy position and just as a figurehead, and it was just access to 22s. Literally just that.
That was the one, the single issue. Huh?
That was my single issue thing. I just wanted to go out plinking. And and like you couldn't go out plinking anymore. It was like to get a box of 22s, it was like you'd have to go to a gun show and get the first boxes that happened to be there, and they were way overpriced and all that kind of stuff. Had nothing to do with the presidency. Just people worried that, oh my God, Obama might take our 22s.
Yeah.
But, you know, in an election like that, where both candidates are fairly unlikable and people just need some reason to vote for somebody, single issue can be what motivates somebody to get off the fence in that situation.
People say that about abortion this time.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that Biden kind of flubbed that during the debate. Like, he had such a great in.
He ride that hard, but yeah.
He had such a great in during the debate on, like, you know, let's hit him hard on this. And then suddenly he just pivots to, like, you were going after this one immigrant murderer.
I did hear that. Like, yeah. And that was a big flub.
Yeah. And it was like, this is the one issue you can hit him and hit him hard and, like, gain support on, and you just whiffed it. But, like, it depends on how much the Harris campaign is going to be willing to campaign on that.
And I feel like she'd be more likely than he was.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but like there's a balance there where like you have to think about how misogynistic the voter base is. And if she becomes too shrill on it, she may demotivate a lot of her base.
Oh, okay. So they're bigger.
That's what I was trying to.
I want to see you guys closer. Okay, there we go. I got this. All right. So one thing, I wanted to make sure Matt was here for this one because I want to talk about the. We could do a couple of them, but the Supreme Court case, the most famous one that's playing in this is that immunity case, and Supreme Court cases. You know, we study them. They have huge impacts, and that. What do you guys think about the last one about this immunity case? And if people have gone after it so hard, it's the Cypher. I've seen your tweets were probably the hottest. I think of some of the ones I've seen out there about death of.
We're no longer a republic.
Yeah, like we're no longer a republic and all that. How I did a video. I covered the Legal Eagle video that was kind of going over that, and as you can imagine, they really did not like it and things. But my question was, the couple of the questions I had in it were, is there a historical problem that case was trying to fix? Has there been something that this is addressing, or is it completely about what's happening right now with his accusations and things? What problem does this historically fix?
It fixes nothing.
If there is one.
No, it fixes no historical problem.
When I look which side of the partisan divide you're on.
When I listen to oral arguments, though, like it seemed that they were trying to pursue some kind of standard, like, or like, how there's like oftentimes with landmark Supreme Court cases, they have some kind of new benchmark where it's like like the Brandenburg test. This is how we know, like, or the clear and present danger doctrine or something like that. And so I was like, okay, maybe we're actually going to have more clarity. No, you read the actual opinion and it just adds more distortion and confusion. And so I feel like we don't really, I know people are freaking out, like, but honestly, it could be bad, but we don't really quite yet know because a lot of it's still in the hands of judges. We'll find out more in the coming years. It could be very bad.
Trump nominated more judges than
Biden
did. So
yeah,
but I mean, just look what happened in Florida. Like,
Cannon.
Yeah, but I'll also point out there is absolutely a historical problem that this was addressing, and it was the problem left open from US v. Nixon.
Yeah,
which. Nixon was about like civil cases.
Why don't you break that down, Morris, real quick?
People that don't know. I think Matt would be.
Matt, go for it.
Matt's better.
You want to do that?
This is your baby, Matt. We're talking about
anybody that feels
point in the correct direction.
That's, by the way, that is the teacher brain in me. That's the teacher brain in me, where it's like, to bring it up, I want to make sure the class understands before we.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah. So the in simplest terms, in the 70s, there were a lot of actual lawsuits against President Richard Nixon. He made a lot of people mad, and so people were suing President Nixon, and the Supreme Court actually ultimately ruled that the president is in fact immune from not all, but most. I would say, I don't want to talk in absolute terms here, but most civil cases, in terms of you just not because there were some cases, some lawsuits that were they came across as more frivolous, and so kind of reining that in, because everybody wanted a little piece of the president after the scandal, the Watergate scandal.
Well, it was also because he got pardoned, and so everybody was like, "Well, then we're going to get him in civil court,"
Right.
And everybody dogpiled on him to try to, and that's something that you can't pardon a civil case. So it was a way around the pardon. So that was the bigger picture, but there was this, nagging issue of, okay, that's for civil court cases, but it's only civil because he's immune from criminal prosecution because he accepted that pardon. But would that pardon have been did that pardon actually pardon a crime, was an open question. And according to the Supreme Court on July 1st, it wasn't a crime. Nixon was in the right the whole time.
So what's the problem this current one fixes? Because that's what we were saying. Just to try to make it more cut and dry.
Answers that question of whether or not that immunity from civil decisions applies to criminal decisions.
And if it is an official act, it's an official act, then
the president just refused to do anything about that.
Official act, I
guess
that's
the problem. Exactly. It's so difficult to. They did not clearly define what an official act was. They could have just said, "Oh, if it's explicitly in the Constitution," and they didn't.
See, my perspective on this is that really, I know everybody's making a really big deal out of it, but honestly, I don't know how much really changed, because it's still got to be debated, things like what's an official act. So how much really, does it embolden someone like Trump to do certain things? I don't know. Maybe it does, but that stuff would still be taken back to the courts again anyway.
Can I put on my conspiracy hat? Can I put on my conspiracy hat? They passed that, and there was an attempted presidential assassination right after it, guys. Can I get some conspiracy? Get the conspirators. I love that, because maybe it was a presidential act going by. So if literally something like that happened, there was.
Sotomayor did argue that that the act immunizes Biden from assassinating his political enemies with SEAL Team 6. That's in the in her
dissent.
Yeah. So that's not like a Twitter hot take. That's just.
Yeah. It was a funny thing.
It was a
funny thing the conspiracists were saying that wanted to tie it back to.
I think the bigger Supreme Court thing, though, is the other case that changed how the departments in the executive office can regulate things.
Sure.
Oh, Chevron, yeah.
Yeah, the Chevron doctrine. Because now what it effectively means is anytime any of those laws are brought up in courts, it's going to be at the discretion of the judge to decide whether it'll stay how it is or whether Congress needs to draft a law on how that regulates. And that is a very fundamental change.
That was the other case I wanted to bring up. If you guys wanted to talk about that, about kind of historical contact with the Chevron case, because from what I understand, that's another video I covered, another legal one where he talked about that and how much more it's going to give, from what I understand, more power to decide a lot of those things away from expert groups and groups that are tasked with certain decisions like that, and give it more to the courts. And is that From what I understand, what the big thing is.
Well, but it's not just the courts; it's also the legislative branch, theoretically. Like
if they do anything.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is that we have a dysfunctional Congress that is already struggling as it is, and so but to make up for the fact that we have a dysfunctional Congress, we've had an administrative state that has continued to grow and become more and more like. I mean, there's millions of unelected bureaucrats that essentially run a lot of things, and sometimes it seems like they are doing things outside of the law because of that. Because things just need to get done, and you don't have the time. Nobody got time for that or resources for that. And so, I get the concern, and I get why there's a lot of conservatives who have celebrated the overturning of Chevron. The name of the case actually is, if you want to look it up, Loper Bright Enterprises v. Raimondo. It's a big deal, but some conservatives argue this could lead to actually a lot of good reforms, like where you have a return of power to the legislative branch. Mm-hmm. Maybe laws will be written better. There'll be more clarity with laws. I'm trying to suspend judgment, but when I first found out about the case, I was definitely alarmed by it.
Because the specific wording is that the precedent was that if a case would go to a court and it was about regulation, it was the judge would defer to whatever department was in charge of that regulation was doing, and that was the precedent.
Right.
So now a judge can go, well, now that that's overturned, I have to defer to what Congress has said since they passed laws. Oh, there's no laws on this. Therefore, you're free to go or whatever.
Yeah. To pick up on what Matt was saying, talking about the ineffective legislative branch, we've also seen over the last 20 to 30 years, presidents, because of that, taking so much more power into their own hands, just using executive action for everything.
Well, that's what I wanted to bring up was, how much does this affect the ability of executive orders to affect change in how regulation is done? Because there's so much. I mean, like, think about like DACA, the deferred action for children
of aliens.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. The Dreamer thing, it started off as the Dream Act, but because Congress didn't pass it, Obama basically just said, screw it. I'm just going to say I'm not enforcing this. This is actually a classic example of a point where presidents absolutely do, and this is something I'm pushing back against Matt earlier. Presidents absolutely do decide I'm just not going to enforce this law.
Well, that's the exception to the norm, is what I'm saying. It does happen.
They do, but everyone does it, and like it determines how they execute the law. It's the executive branch. He's a president. It presides over the execution of laws. Like that's what the name means. And yet a bunch of that won't be able to continue if like it comes down to the judge deciding whether or not it meets the letter of the law rather than its spirit being decided by the president.
Cypher, look at this one too, because you're a former serviceman. And about the immunity case. Immunity case seems very consequential to myself as a service member. If the president is immune from consequences of his or her orders, how about those that are he or she that's doing the ordering? That makes sense? Can you, what are they immune then? Like to anything?
Like define, like in terms of like, if you, like what crime would you be committing under orders,
that. Something that would actually use a service, like
there's
military service member, maybe.
Like I don't know, maybe like traffic laws. It's perfectly common for the Secret Service to block roads. Technically, that's illegal. That is technically illegal. But we all just kind of wave our hands up and go, "That's the Secret Service. They get to do what they want." But that's already pretty well understood that laws get waived under special circumstances. In terms of like the laws of war, like we're all trained as I was in the army, and like we're all trained to, that if you are given an unlawful order, it's an unlawful order. You are required not to respect it.
Okay.
Like that is a requirement. Just following orders is not enough if you are violating the law. It's when it's that gray area where it's like, well, it's technically a lawful order, but
you swear to uphold the Constitution, right?
Isn't that it's like the whistleblower defense, where it's like, well, one, technically you can't be a whistleblower in the military. You gave up that right by becoming a service member. So like, what's her name? Something Bradley, I think. Whistleblower from like the 2010s, went to WikiLeaks. What's her name?
Oh, Manning.
Sorry, I was dead naming her.
Yeah, Chelsea Manning. Yes,
Chelsea Manning.
Oh, okay.
But Chelsea Manning, she was but she was not a whistleblower. She gave up that right. Couldn't do it. She was disobeying lawful orders. But there's like a whole moral thing on top of that. But at that point, it's like whether or not you like that.
Right, and that's the problem, because then everybody gets to decide what they think is a moral or moral order.
And that has nothing to do with immunity from prosecution. She got prosecuted and convicted, rightfully so. But Obama also commuted her sentence. So
right.
Someone want to follow up with that? If you are given an illegal order from the president, do you follow it?
No,
that you're not legally required to.
Yeah.
Not only are you not legally required to, you are required not to.
Yeah, and you will get
nice
protection.
Try, Mr. President, sir.
A lot of that goes back to the one of the things we talk about. Like I always bring up in my classes, we talk about the Holocaust,
right,
and talk about punishments for people that ordered things versus those that carried it out, right? So what do you do about those individuals that again actually carried out? Because so when the people that did the orders, they didn't physically do the thing, but they carried it out. So what should be the punishment at all? And it usually provides a fairly kind of split kind of decision there, from like, this is high schoolers, but yeah.
It also requires knowledge of the law. Like, we're, in the Army, we're given very specific training on like following the Geneva Conventions. But I remember in Afghanistan, we actually had like to change the what's called I'm forgetting what the acronym means. It's called SOP, Standard Operating
Procedure.
Yeah, we had to change SOP because when we were dealing with entrenched enemy, we would often use what's called a shake and bake, when you fire high explosive rounds and white phosphorus rounds. But it turns out that's now a war crime.
Well, white phosphorus? Yeah.
No, the combination. White phosphorus isn't. No, actually, white phosphorus, that's a common misconception. White phosphorus is perfectly usable, especially if you're dealing with like an entrenched enemy or anti-personnel vehicles or something along those lines. They're very much not only perfectly admissible, but very useful. But it's the main thing that people think of in white phosphorus is, in populated areas. We're talking the mountains of the Hindu Kush. So not really applicable there either. But it's the combination that shake and bake, when you bring high explosives and white phosphorus at the same time, when you do a fire for effect and they all land at the same time. That is now a war crime. But it wasn't when we started. And we had to actually learn that was a war crime. So it was like SOP until it wasn't, and you have to learn, you have to constantly be dealing with this stuff. There's a lot of things that you wouldn't think about because you're just following orders, but like eventually you have to learn.
Speaking of whistleblowers, what do you guys think about what's going on with Julian Assange? So he's pled guilty, but is gonna be able to stay out of
I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner.
Man,
Yeah.
How long was he?
A long time.
In hiding?
Like he's back in Australia.
Oh my gosh. But it sounds like they're not going to extradite him, right? Or anything like that, right? Isn't that kind of part of that? Nope. So the whistleblower
stuff.
It's Jover.
Speaking of which, I have an interesting update. As of 2 hours ago, I guess that would be around 7 hours since Biden has dropped out or so.
Okay.
Democrats have received record donations in the biggest day of donations since the 24 hours after Ruth Bader Ginsburg died in 2020.
A lot of people who were using their money to push Biden out by withholding donations are now, okay, he did what we wanted. Here's the money.
Well, that was a worry.
And so it says that donations spiked from an average of around $200,000 an hour before Mr. Biden quit to $7.5 million an hour. And so in the 5-ish hours, he's raised over $30 million.
Have you already talked about like if this improves this improves the Democrats' chances? You already talked about that.
We were talking about it earlier. Well, actually, not
about it basically doing the opposite. So this might energize the base.
To be honest, not really. Not specifically with that. If it helps him, I know people all over, but I think it does. I'm not like incredibly confident about it, but I think it does. Don't you guys? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I still think as long as it's settled as Trump versus other person by like October, then it's fair game.
I don't think it hurts because again, it's like you said, Trump versus not Trump, right? Isn't that still what it is?
Yeah.
So that won't change. Vote blue, no other.
It looks like Kamala Harris has already got a lot of endorsements from big names already.
The chairman of all 50 state Democratic parties have already come out in support of her.
Wow.
In the last 7 hours?
All 50. Yeah. This was planned. This was all orchestrated.
Yeah.
They are going into that convention with her as the nominee. They're not going to mess with anything.
Are there no Catholics?
No, Joe Biden was the Catholic, but he stepped down.
Yeah.
And that means that Catholic presidents are 0-2 for second terms.
And they definitely made sure to wait until the RNC was done because that would have been incredible fodder for that whole convention.
Well, and
talk about unity versus disunity.
I've been saying all along that I don't know who negotiated it, but in hindsight, we'll be looking at the fact that they chose to have a debate that early as a big mistake by the Republicans. Because if there had just been a debate in October, there's nothing you can do about Biden.
Maybe they didn't think he'd drop.
If we're having this whole conversation in October, it's done. The election's over.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they were going to be quick about this anyway, because I know we brought it up briefly about how there's no way they would kick him off the ballot, but I looked up like when the deadlines for a party candidate to be on the ballot specifically, because there's a difference between registering a party, an independent candidate, and then a party candidate on the ballot. And the only deadline that, at least from what I can see, that has passed is one for Georgia. So because I guess that was July 19th, so missed it by a couple of days. Because there was the thing about Ohio, but that's August 7th. And it was a big deal because apparently the convention for the Democrats is later than normal.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, that's weird then. Why do that? Why hold it so late?
Yeah, so that
could happen, you know?
And so that's why it's a big deal. But if they're already, like, if they decide, okay, we all support Kamala, then they can still meet Ohio's deadline of August 7th. And that's the next deadline after Georgia. So they're probably realizing, oh, well, we don't want to be off the states, especially swing states.
Georgia is basically a swing state, right?
Yeah, it's important.
It's becoming one.
Yeah, I mean, like
it's decided the last election
for like the first time
largely.
Yeah, so I'm just betting in Occam's razor that there's like, all right, we got to avoid the disaster as much as we can. Let's just pick someone and move on.
So Matt, one of the things we were talking about before you came on was about running mates, and I know that you dropped in on my stream earlier, and kind of what I said was I feel like the boxes that she needs to check is swing state, probably governor, younger. And like to me, governor of Pennsylvania, governor of North Carolina are two great examples of the kind of person she probably needs to be looking at. But Cypher made the point that what we don't know in all of that is what her relationship is with those guys. And that's kind of an unknown factor in all this.
Yeah, I would add Midwestern is probably an important.
Yeah, especially now with Vance on the ticket.
Yeah. And you know, a lot of those swing states are in the Midwest. So Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania.
It's going to be a white, straight, cis, het male from a swing state.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe Biden, what are you doing right now? Would you like to be vice president again?
Wait, Delaware ain't a swing
Delaware's
state.
not a swing state.
Although I would say that Gretchen Whitmer would be a pretty strong pick as a running mate. I'm noticing a lot of just people I know, and then some of my the folks that interact with me on Twitter. They are like the Americans are not ready to elect a female president, and I know Emperor Tigerstar, you chimed in as well, and I don't believe that. I don't
think so either.
They technically did. The Electoral College just got in the way
in 2016. Yeah. I don't know. Like,
oh, it's just all you Midwesterners are so misogynistic.
Oh,
that's why the vice president, if it's not Whitmer, it should be Pritzker.
Well, no, Kansas isn't Midwestern. Kansas is Western.
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
But anyway,
what do you think, Matt? You live, I mean, you're in Kansas, right?
I actually have a weird view. I think that it's split. If you go out west in western Kansas, it's definitely more in line with the mountain states. But yeah, I'm here in eastern Kansas, and we definitely most of us identify with Midwest.
Well,
yeah, the same thing. Ohio,
I mean, just regional identity.
Yeah, everything south of Columbus in Ohio is Appalachia. So I mean, same kind of thing.
No, I feel very Midwestern. I like culturally. I mean, as far as it's a weird.
Mr. Beat is Midwestern. You know, Kansas farmer stereotype. That's about as Midwestern as it gets.
I always thought of just Kansas as a whole is Western, like defined as Western because Missouri, you Tigerstar, freaking tried to invade, and Kansas said no.
Okay, but the border wasn't always
right
out west. The border has moved. There's always violence along the border. You study this, Cypher. You should know better.
Hey, they built an arch in Missouri about this. Okay, didn't that settle it once and for all?
Well, Missouri.
Otherwise, take it down.
Because we're kind of split between the Midwest and the South. So if you go to St. Louis, Kansas City, and the more bigger cities, they're culturally Midwestern, but rural Missouri is culturally Southern.
Yeah. Anyway,
hey, coming back to some history stuff. So on the topic of vice president, how important you guys think historically it has been to, in naming vice presidents as running mates? Do you think it is consequential?
Generally, I think it made a huge difference in 2008.
Yeah, 2008 with Palin. Yeah, absolutely.
The usual wisdom is you pick someone in an area that you're weak in hoping of getting that state. But I don't even remember the last time that even mattered, because I guess Clinton picked the one person from Virginia, which was a swing state, and I guess she got Virginia. But
1864.
Yeah, because Clinton famously doubled down and just picked another Southern Democrat in Tennessee, so that didn't really do anything. And then Cheney wasn't from a swing state, and Biden wasn't from a swing state. So I really can't.
That's true.
I really can't think of the last time that wisdom played out.
Yeah, I think most of the time in American history, it hasn't really been that consequential. There are exceptions, like 2008, 1864, Andrew Johnson. That was a big.
But I think more of those
would be
consequential in hindsight because the president died in office. So same thing.
Right.
LBJ is a great example. Yeah.
Get a Southerner.
Because it was about because at that point the Democratic Party was in huge flux. I mean, it's huge flux today, but in a different way, that it was in sectional flux, which is different. And you'd had this run of Northern Democrats who had been kind of running the party, and Kennedy was coming in on this civil rights platform. So you kind of needed a Southerner to unify the base.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think that's a
1960.
I think a lot of times during these elections, we think that the nominees are big shake-up things, but then when we get a decade down the road and we look back, we're like, okay, maybe it really didn't matter that much.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even tell you the vast majority of vice presidents period.
Plus, there are always a set of voters somewhere that just have not been paying attention and won't pay attention until like the last few days of the election.
I mean, they're often unknowns for most people, mostly are unknowns. Those vice presidential candidates for
one thing we
generally, I feel like for people, the regular Joe.
One thing we've been talking about throughout all of this is that the this election isn't about like changing voters' minds, but getting them energized to vote, right?
Right.
And like we keep on hitting on this, but I genuinely think that's the main thing. And so every little bit counts, especially in swing states.
So maybe Greg Whitmer is it, because Michigan, 2 women on the same ticket for the first time in American history could get a lot of women to the polls. Plus, combined with the abortion issue, I mean, maybe that's the route that Democrats want to take. I didn't really think about it until just now.
I didn't.
Kamala will do.
I did not put those two together. I almost did it with 2 fingers. That would have been the wrong symbol. But like. Two women specifically because of this of that. Yeah, I didn't even think about it because
the contrast
of the abortion issue.
Yeah,
yeah. This is the first time that we're really voting on abortion's always been a
wedge issue.
Yeah. But it's been a wedge issue. It's been a way of dividing people. Now it's like there's clear sides. People have chosen. There's more Americans who prefer to have abortion rights codified into our as a right to privacy, and this is the first election that we will actually decide that.
Chris, what were you
going to say? Though, because it's been thrown back to the states because of the Supreme Court case.
Right.
A lot of these states have, like in Ohio, that's not an issue here anymore because we already decided that issue. I wonder, it was definitely a huge issue in 2022 in the midterms.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced it's as big an issue for the national election as it might have been.
Because it's going to depend on the state.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a bunch of states it's on the ballot this year. So,
but how many of the swing states are limiting abortion?
Oh, I don't think any.
Not many. That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's an issue in the states where it matters.
It wouldn't be a swing state issue.
Yeah.
It would be more symbolic, I think, because the difference between 2024 and 2020 is we probably should let the audience know is that landmark Supreme Court decision, Jackson v. Dobbs, that overturned Roe v. Wade.
Right.
And so since then you saw a bunch of states pass legislation either limiting abortions further, or in other cases protecting the abortion. So basically, even if it's not directly on the ballot, it may be seen as something symbolic that motivates specifically just women to go out and vote.
Yeah, but it also depends on which women, which state they're in.
Yeah.
So states that will have abortion as a ballot issue in 2024 that are swing states, it looks like Nevada, Arizona, Florida, Pennsylvania, and I guess Colorado isn't a swing state anymore.
I don't think I'd call Florida a swing state at this point either.
And also, I don't even know if Nevada counts anymore. It feels like it's turned solidly blue.
The polls are currently red for Nevada.
No.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%.
I mean, Biden was polling so badly. I don't think people realize how badly his polling has been the last couple of weeks.
It's
like Nevada was and for those who don't know, I grew up in Nevada. And Nevada was always a swing state.
Trump plus 5.6 in Nevada. Average.
That's huge. Yeah. And he can't even say the word right, and that's a huge issue for us.
But if the overturning of Roe v. Wade really does become this massive issue, then maybe Nevada and Florida will be more swingy this time than usual, because that could be when you have an issue that is about personal autonomy, that could affect people's voting habits differently than just an idea of a policy that might affect them. But it's more personal.
I'll say this though, and and granted, it's a different story when the votes are happening at the same time. When you're voting on the abortion issue and the president at the same time is one thing. But just using the example of where I live, Ohio, we passed a constitutional amendment to protect abortion rights. Ohio is not a battleground state. I mean, Trump's going to overwhelmingly win no matter who he's running against in Ohio, even though those same voters voted.
Ohio used to be a swing state.
It used to be, but it hasn't been. And I said, as I said earlier, I live in a county that going all the way back, I don't know, probably to Eisenhower hasn't voted. Well, maybe with Reagan it did, but in my lifetime, Mahoning County, where I live, has not voted red until 2020, and Trump just barely won. That was how much Ohio has swung. So I don't see abortion affecting Ohio, but maybe at the same time, it's a different story in some of these states.
Yeah, North Carolina, I think, isn't it? Emperor Tigerstar isn't that also on the ballot in North Carolina, which is another swing state?
Not the map I'm looking at, but maybe it's out of date.
Yeah, I mean,
what the single. So if we want to call those, or if it's going to activate single issue voters, especially women that might come to the polls this time for that, because it seems like of a lot of things the Democratic Party has a stance on, it's probably the thing that's of the more divisive things, the thing they have in their favor the most. And I know a lot of people were really criticizing Biden for not, like in that first debate, of not hardly even mentioning it and trying to like build upon the thing that like you have that you have going for you. We know Kamala will do it because that's like the thing she talks about. Probably I see the most with that. Will that in any way, bring out women who are like, I don't think either, like it's over with. The issue's done with, but now is there like somehow renewed hope? Because the big thing they want is like national codification. If they can do that, that was a big criticism that people had of Biden. They didn't trust him on the abortion issue because like you were in there and never did anything to try to solidify that, even though you knew it could be changed because you saw these Supreme Court justices getting nominated. And although didn't all three of them that Trump ran in those hearings all say it was basically one of those, it's one of those, Roe v. Wade is just, it's in stone, right? It's like something that'll never be changed, but then they all ended up voting for that. The people lost the trust in him about abortion issues. And if Kamala swings that vote at all, and again, if it doesn't actually impact anything.
When you're voting for president, a lot of people are voting for Supreme Court justices.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, I know Senate has to approve, but I mean, and also like, I know you're focusing on this one issue, but I think it's more important to say, and I just saw this comment too. That's why. But I mean, like, okay, come on. Joe Biden struggled to talk. we should not downplay this.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris can talk.
Yeah.
She knows. She may be a little awkward. She may have a weird laugh. But if you get her on a debate stage with Trump, we're going to see dramatic improvement just almost by default. Like you put most people there.
She's
and
also
Joe Biden,
significantly younger and like more capable.
Yeah, she's still a boomer.
Joe Biden may not have been able to talk, but he won the battle against Medicare.
That's right. Oh, gosh. I still can't believe you said that. Do you remember that? Okay, yeah.
We just threw that in at the end.
That actually made me
Medicare
in the debate because I didn't believe he said that.
Yeah, my larger point is just this. I think a lot of people, they're just relieved that they have somebody who can go in there and, put together a string of thoughts and speak off the cuff and go for a couple hours if needed.
Yeah, but does that motivate people to vote? Because that's the thing. We didn't. We're not really seeing any change in people's minds. They already know who they prefer. It's just whether or not they'll actually do anything about it.
Yeah, we're really talking about a very small slice of the American populace. So like maybe even less than 10 million people who's able to like shift to either Republican or Democrat. And so of those 10 million people, they have done some, they've, what are those called when they get them in a room and they question them? I don't forget what they call them, but focus group. That's it. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. They've done some focus groups. I followed this stuff the last few days in particular after there was a buzz that Biden might drop out. And a lot of these focus groups say that literally the only reason why they were leaning towards Trump is they wanted somebody who didn't have obvious cognitive decline. It's that simple. I think that a lot of people now are going to be like, okay, we're not putting in somebody that can't even.
So look at this comment. Do you think this is rare? My wife isn't going to vote for Harris, but she would have voted for Biden.
Yeah, I don't believe that at all. I think it's bull crap. I'm going to call you out right now. Cutting room floor. You are lying to us.
Yeah, that's his their wife. I shouldn't assume that person's gender, but
I don't think it's real.
Unless they got arrested by Harris for smoking weed in California, it's probably not true.
But their wife is, like, I'm sure it exists, but like it's not like that. I don't think that's going to be deciding at all. What I think in terms of like just gender, I think that the abortion ban will be a huge factor.
Yeah.
But in terms of whether or not women are willing to vote for Harris, I think it will come down largely to whether or not they're willing to vote. They've already decided there's going to be, roughly 47% of the nation's women are Republican, and 53%. I'm just making up the numbers, but 47% are Republican and 53% are Democrat, and it's whether or not they can motivate that like 1% who would have otherwise not voted.
See, I think right now Trump still has the motivation factor on his side. I said this at the beginning, I'll say it again. Two things. Number one, we really have no idea where this election stands probably till the end of August. After we get past the Democrat convention, we see who the VP nominee is. We start to see how this campaign shapes up between a different candidate now, and how that we'll start to get an idea, I think. But also, I think the other important thing here is I still think it's Trump's election to lose. He's very capable of losing it. I don't know if he's capable of this, but if he's willing to listen to counsel, what I'm counseling him if I'm on his campaign staff is you just have to be normal. Just be normal, come across as reasonable and presidential. I know that's really hard for Trump to do, and I don't know that that's who Trump is. But if he can be the least bit come across that way, I think it's still his election to lose. But I don't know if he's capable of that. Right?
Yeah, I mean, he's been trying to do that whole this is a different Trump after the shooting. Like he's been trying to play the whole solidarity game. He couldn't quite fully do it. He had to do the Biden's destroyed this country. Rah!
Yeah, imagine if he pulled a Wallace 82 thing and just completely transformed himself and then just ends up winning in a landslide.
I still, because it was in a previous live stream that I learned that.
For context, George Wallace, the segregationist, he got shot in 1972.
Yes.
And then in
running for president.
Yeah.
And then in Alabama, he randomly had an epiphany and pulled a complete 180. And I don't know whether in his heart he had truly reformed or if this is a cynical play. I don't know. But for what it's worth, he ran for governor of Alabama in 1982. And he went on this giant forgiveness campaign where he literally went to every major black church in Alabama. He couldn't get on his knees because he was in a wheelchair, but he was metaphorically on his knees, begging for forgiveness. And he won a landslide of the black vote. He won the election in a landslide. And for what it's worth, he did appoint more people of color to positions of power in Alabama than any other governor since then. So he met his words with action. So
this is also a guy who ran freaking segregation now, segregation then, segregation
well, that's why
forever.
It's significant that he changed so much in the 80s.
Yeah, so I mean, at the very least, if it was a cynical ploy, he at least met his words with action. So
yeah, exactly.
All right, people are going to be picketing if I don't get to some of these super chat questions.
Yeah,
so
especially
we're going to move to that part of the hangout here. We were talking earlier about how Michelle Obama can't win because everyone is traumatized from her ruining the school menus. So
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
That group is voting now, and they're not going to let that go for as a candidate. Vincent here, though, thank you. Was very happy, to hear about that. They brought the chocolate milk back, so that was good. Homer didn't have a question, but thank you for your 5. All right, here we go. Weird out of Australia. I am more interested in JD Vance and his influence on the tech industries against DEI is a tech investor. The VP might know how YouTube works.
His primary investor is also Peter Thiel.
Yeah,
that's his.
Okay, what is this? How has he got influence on the tech industry? I don't understand.
Peter Thiel.
Yeah, I think that's what they mean by that.
Yeah, he was kind of a prodigy of his, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. JD Vance is actually like directly related to
work for him, right?
Peter Thiel was a big investor in JD Vance.
Yeah. He's like most of his donations, so he's basically cynically Peter Thiel's sock puppet, if you want to put it that way.
For those who don't know, Peter Thiel was another person behind PayPal and another just right-wing weirdo.
You mean in addition to Elon Musk, is what you're saying?
Well,
look at that famous picture of them together on top of the fucking computer.
How many million a month is Elon giving? What do you say? 45 or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Peter Thiel was quoted as saying that it was a mistake giving women the right to vote and that freedom can no longer be compatible with democracy. So take that for what you will.
If you think that Musk has gone down the right-wing rabbit hole, you haven't looked at Peter Thiel. Like he makes freaking Elon look like a cuddly little teddy bear.
All right. General Eric Smith as VP. Harris Smith. Okay.
All right. I'm going to just acknowledge my ignorance here. I have no idea who General Eric Smith is.
I don't either.
I don't either.
Anybody? Nope. Is it even general? 2 British pounds, though. Thank you. Is he one of your? Wait. Is he one of your generals?
The British general?
He is from the pictures. He's a Marine Corps general. Yes, he's a Marine Corps general.
From Kansas City.
The commandant of the Marine Corps. Is what he says.
Okay. Oh, okay.
That's cool.
I don't know. I don't deal with jarheads.
What do you guys think? You know how like you could ride a military career of leadership like into a presidency. Do you guys think that's over?
No.
Like who's of like leadership, not just you served, but like an Eisenhower.
Imagine
Grant, a guy like that
had his whole scandal. David Petraeus might have had a shot.
Imagine if Colin Powell ran in 08.
Colin Powell, yep.
Yeah, like
we're gonna have to get in a big war again. That's the only thing.
That's what we
fair point.
If we're out of war.
No, local elections, it still matters too, because like in my state, while he didn't win, it was the closest election in like 2 decades in Missouri because the Democratic candidate, why am I forgetting his name? But he was like a Marine, and he just made a whole bunch of campaign ads while he was like disassembling and putting back together his gun like a bajillion times while spouting campaign positions. And he ended up getting like 49% of the vote, which for a Democrat in Missouri is like the best in like 20 years.
Honestly, if there's like I remember in the Democratic nomination during 2016, there was this one question that there was a guy who they asked like who do you count as your greatest enemy that you were happy to have as an enemy, and everybody's like the NRA, and then one guy was like that guy I threw a grenade at in Vietnam, and everybody just kind of went like Jesus. That guy would be a great vice president.
I didn't know you streamed earlier.
I did a 2-hour stream this afternoon, so I'm on 4 hours of streaming today talking about.
Oh my gosh, I wouldn't have pulled all you guys in if you were. Right. If you were
I had thought about streaming in the evening today, and then when I saw the Biden announcement, I'm like, nah, I got to jump on now and do something. So,
correction.
I have no life, and I was sitting around with nothing to do this afternoon anyway.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Zach, for that.
Correction. He was in the Army, and he served in Afghanistan under the rank of captain. His name was Jason Kander.
Oh, okay.
Wait, and he actually knew how to disassemble and reassemble an AR, in civilian parlance, AR-15.
I don't remember what the I don't know what the I don't know what the specific gun. No, I don't know what the specific gun was, but on the commercial, he was taking apart the gun.
It's a veteran joke.
Nathaniel, thank you for the $10. Said, and so what you guys think about this? My prediction is the GOP will have really good enthusiasm, while the Dems will have lowered enthusiasm due to the chaos within the party and potentially the convention. I don't think
there's going to be chaos. I think that convention is going to be unity behind Kamala Harris and her running mate.
Yep.
They will not risk that. While Biden was being pushed out, they had to have already been thinking about what was coming next. So they were ready for this. That's why all those statements came out immediately in support of Kamala Harris.
It's also
there is the question. There's also the question of this whole whether or not this late in the game switch will cause chaos in terms of the electorate altogether. Not the convention. The convention's pretty much a done deal, and it's going to just be whoever for the VP. It's going to be whoever whoever I almost called her Biden Harris. whoever Kamala will just feels that she'll work best with and fits the voter base best. I don't think that any of it's really going to motivate the voter base enough. What's going to happen is whether or not this whole switch is going to be a problem or a benefit. And I don't know.
I like to say, like, people it's been getting on my nerves because, like, total lack of knowledge of history. And I'm the presidential elections guy. I get it. But come on, before 1972, conventions were generally held in the summer before the election. And usually it was in July. It was around this time. And they didn't have a nominee until the convention. This was before primaries existed, before caucuses. They didn't listen. They just had
for Democrats,
the elites. Well, for the
which
Democratic
is the party that's doing this right now. So
exactly. So I'm just saying, like, I don't understand, like, why so many people. Well, it's too late. There are 3.5 months left. Then, like you were saying earlier, I think it was Cypher said this. Like, we have ballots are not even printed yet. And what if, even if they were printed, what if Joe Biden dies in September, and he's on the, what would people do?
People say it's late because we're used to a 2-year presidential election cycle now. So it feels late.
Pretty much in our lifetime, right? Like, I mean, since all of us have been alive, that's been the way it is. But if you go back further in history, you'll realize, this actually really isn't that big a deal at all.
The UK election was like what? Like 2 months?
Yeah, gosh, yeah. That was really quick.
They also, like, a lot of other countries put specific limits on
like a
when
6-week
the election
period.
happen.
That's it.
Yeah. Like, they don't have this weird system where, like, the primaries begin in, like, January of the year. And mind you, I think which one is it? Iowa does the first one, right?
Iowa caucuses and New Hampshire primary. Yeah.
Caucuses primaries. I hate caucuses so much. But, like, the Iowa caucuses is in, like, January, but that was fairly recent too. Like,
they've all been moving back further and further to
like that didn't become a thing until, like, what, the 1990s, right?
That soon, you mean? Like,
that in January.
That early,
and people didn't pay attention to Iowa until after Jimmy Carter. Like, after the late 70s is when they even paid attention to Iowa. Like, I
don't think most people pay attention to Iowa outside of January of every presidential election.
Oh, we love you, Iowa.
Look, my mom was born there, but, like, even she would just be. I remember Shannon recently did a poll on Twitter of, like, which one's better, Iowa or some bordering state, and I'm like, even my mom would say the bordering states.
All right, hey, I'm gonna hop back in. Sean. Give $5. Said, do you think the Democrats could come back from Biden dropping out? Well, yeah, that's
better off.
He didn't drop out because he didn't want to. It was very much pressure. So
the odds of the Democrats winning the election went way up today.
Yep, I think that answers it. All right, how about this one? Okay, first off, I don't know if you guys watched many of the RNC speeches. I will say they picked some great speakers. Like, as far as just hype men.
Certainly, I was gonna say hype.
Dana White, like Dana, and then
attention.
Hulk Hogan here. Is Hulk Hogan's speech made Biden realize he had to drop out?
I don't know, that like Hulk Hogan speech just seemed well, I hate to say it, but hokey.
Yeah, I mean
that's what a lot of convention speeches are, but yeah, I agree.
But like it was supposed to be more like his whole ship ripping scene like was a letdown. How do you manage to make that a letdown?
Yeah. How about, do you guys think there's pressure on the Democrats to have in their convention like some hype people like that, like they did with Hulk and Dana White? Like, is there pressure on them for the speakers here?
It's so weird because it seemed like that the whole like celebrity culture and politics thing, like there's been a backlash against that since like 2016, right?
Yeah, I think
especially amongst Republicans.
Yeah,
there might be some pressure on the Democrats to want to appear as mainstream and as kind of sane as possible in this.
What do you do other than call Taylor Swift or something? Like,
I mean, there have been
oh my god, if they got Taylor Swift for it.
Non-politicians at these conventions before. I mean, usually, but yeah, Hulk Hogan is definitely a notch up there for sure. But yeah, like it's not unusual to have like a famous actor, for example, like come and speak at these things. So,
especially in the Republicans' case, where you don't have former presidents like George W. Bush coming in. And
that was pretty
historical way they did that.
That was pretty weird, actually, because like that doesn't normally happen. But also
they hate George W. Like they don't like him anymore.
Yeah,
like,
but
we can't bring him out.
I want to point out, like, if they managed to nail down Taylor Swift for the DNC,
I wouldn't be surprised.
Game changer. Like that would absolutely, like,
if it was Hillary, Hillary was in, she'd be in. I mean, she loves Hillary.
I think Hillary Clinton. You'll probably have Bill Clinton speak. I wouldn't be surprised to see Taylor Swift show up at some point.
She's been openly endorsing Democrats since around like 2020 or so. So I think
she could run and like win some votes. I feel like
she doesn't need to speak at the DNC. She can just say at her concerts.
Yeah, but like if she played the DNC,
that would be
like
a big
game
deal.
over. Republicans are just done. Like blue wave. The whole way.
Have enough voting age. I mean, her demographic's pretty big now. Like,
that's true. Yeah.
Now kids of the original.
She's my age. Like I think she's either a year older or a year younger than me. I'm 35, and like
to be 35 again.
Imagine how many, like, if that would happen. Imagine how many like conservative households would enter a civil war between the fathers and the daughters that listen to Taylor Swift.
You're not listening to her ever again.
Shut up, but Dad. Like that would be an actual blue wave. But that would also be kind of career suicide for her. She would suddenly become like so politically polarized that she wouldn't be
she already venues
would no longer accept her.
People already know.
She already endorsed Joe Biden in 2020 though.
I don't think that's
endorsement is one thing. Going and actually playing the DNC is a whole nother thing.
That's fair.
Nelson Rockefeller, any thoughts on him? Vice president, right? Of Ford. Do people nowadays?
I mean, I like the Rockefeller Republicans. Like they were the last good Republicans.
He is indeed a feller.
He was a different kind of Republican than not only George W. Bush, but also Donald Trump. Yes, for sure.
Anyways, thank you, Bill, for that. Or Milbury. That was Milbury. Weird. Said Biden has already dropped out.
Really? When did that happen?
Breaking news here.
No way.
Wait. What? Say it again.
Who's Biden?
Oh, okay. I saw somebody in chat that was like, somebody in chat said like he hasn't even officially said anything. This is a psyop or something. But
you know how I found out? It was when Matt retweeted it, or whatever we're calling X now.
This is the shirt I picked up to wear today. My Washington D.C. shirt is so weird. But I had just logged on. And he had just tweeted it like 3 minutes before. I'm like, well, I'm here
taking a nap.
Breaking news. Yep.
See, I kind of did get psyoped because I went onto my Discord server and like I was just looking at my memes channel, and like, it's memes. So automatically I'm just like, what is up with so many of these memes? Oh, it must be it must just be a joke that's going around.
What's the
so
12
I just was
axes
like
clue?
coming into it like this must be a lie.
I don't think I know this quiz. Do you guys know what this is? Thank you, Chris.
12 axes.
Yes.
What is it?
A political
political-
quiz.
Is it a
It's
spectrum thing?
basically 12 spectrums
Yeah.
instead of 4. So like
Axes. Okay.
yeah, axes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's
Is it like
more
good?
specific than the political compass, so I guess it's better, but it's also like 150 questions. So
Oh god.
Yeah.
I took it in a live stream. It's really good. I
I'm
recommend
gonna
it.
I
make
did
a
a
note of that.
150 question quiz today. I don't need to do another.
Cypher did the praxis, so Mr. B will know about that.
Social studies
Yeah.
praxis.
Oh yeah, fun time.
It's actually super easy for the first 3 quarters, and then suddenly you get into like sociology and economic stuff where it's like, what did this person say? It's like, I don't know who the hell that is.
All right, Cameron, thank you for 7 out of Canada. We kind of touched on this, but I don't think Matt was in here on it. What do you guys think of RFK Jr. now that Biden is out? What
He was
effect will
always
this have on
done.
him?
he was never in.
Better,
yeah,
worse?
but yeah, I think this
Doesn't
does
matter.
reduce what little chance he already had.
Yeah,
I think
also
only
just
on
had
the
a
ballot in 10
scandal.
states.
He had like a scandal like a couple of days ago where like I guess someone leaked his call history, and he had been having a lot of like phone calls with Donald Trump of him telling him what to
That
do.
was his son that leaked that.
Yeah.
He wanted RFK to run. He wanted him to be the Democratic.
So he's been the psyop all along.
He I think if he had been offered the Republican VP nomination, he would have taken it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Opportunist. But yeah, no, we are in a post-scandal society, folks. It doesn't.
Oh, they don't matter anymore.
Scandals don't matter anymore. Where have you been? Like,
Well, scandals
we
matter.
have
It's just
somebody running
how
for
much do
president
they
who's a
matter?
convicted felon who is now the favorite to win the election. Like we have the same guy who's the convicted felon. There's pictures all over the internet with him partying with Jeffrey Epstein. It doesn't matter, okay? RFK Jr. doesn't, or even Kamala Harris, like scandals on Kamala Harris. You kidding me? Like, there's not going to
imagine how much of a nothing burger Watergate would be right now.
Exactly.
Nothing, total nothing burger.
But you have to admit, they make a huge difference in 10 seconds.
I think RFK Jr. gets like 4% now. I would have said before like 6% of the popular vote. He doesn't win any electoral votes. That's the more important thing.
Harrison, thank you. Thank you for supporting. Thank you very much. What is this currency?
Judah is cool.
You know what this currency is?
Dogecoin.
No idea.
It's the Filipino peso.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Judah.
Emperor Tigerstar are always on the ball with that stuff.
Yeah.
All right, Kansas City, Missouri, coming out of here. Thank you, Young French Toast.
Yeah.
Kansas City is Midwest.
Represent.
Yes,
it is, right? I mean, is that a?
I need to get out there to the World War I museum.
It's a fantastic museum.
I've heard that.
I'll give you a tour.
They didn't fight in Missouri.
I'll let you know, Matt. If I go out there, we can connect.
You could do a double feature and also visit the Truman Presidential Library, which is also fantastic.
Yeah, good.
And see his home that he lived in post-presidency. You could literally take a walk through the neighborhood.
Nice.
You know what, Chris here in this $5 super chat. Thank you. It really has been an amazing 8 days or so. Like this is a big deal. Like
stuff we're going to be talking about. I mean, they'll be talking about 100 years from now in the last 8 days.
The beginning before you came in, Matt, we were talking about how some of these events in the last 8, how they're going to be seen as historically. What do you think about this? Do you think that debate from Biden is something worth putting in a textbook, like a general textbook about the election, like that being a pivotal thing and go down in debate history as one of the most impactful debates we've ever had?
Yes, because you have Lincoln Douglas for original debates, you have JFK's debate with Nixon for television, and then this you've got the internet. Like you've got one for like each era of like communication and politics.
Yeah. This is the first time in American history where a debate went so badly that a candidate literally drops out.
Yeah.
Also, like somebody let me know this on Twitter. Cool facts for you, but this is the first incumbent president to not seek re-election now in 56 years. It's the first one full-term president to not seek re-election in 144 years, assuming he makes it to the end of his term in January.
Bush or
the last one would be. Wait.
Well, Bush feels like 144
years ago. Was the last one Polk?
first, the one-term president. Hayes would have been the last one-term president to not seek re-election, right?
To not seek re-election.
I haven't fact
Hayes
checked
didn't seek it.
It would probably have to be Hayes.
Well, 144 years. Yeah, that would. Wait, no, that'd be
Rutherford B. Hayes in 1880. Yeah.
But well, hold on. Hayes sought re-election.
Did he?
No, he didn't. No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
I didn't think he did.
After Reconstruction, he said he didn't want
part of the
his
agreement.
nomination.
Yeah, part of the compromise of 1877. He said, I'm not going to seek re-election right at the beginning. So
that's why I was a wide open Republican convention for that.
I know the details are hazy, but
all right. By the way, here's cutting room floor. He was the one that said his wife was not going to vote now for Harris. Got a follow up there. Said, let me put this in context. Me and her are 26, live in Georgia, and she takes issue with Harris comments about people our age being stupid.
Our age.
Yeah. But like
Biden said that too.
You remember he said, she was going to vote for Biden, but now won't vote for Harris.
I mean, listen, in a time in history where we have pretty unlikable presidential candidates, I've heard worse reasons why people chose not to vote for somebody.
So, like, the first person I talked to was a friend back in Vegas, and I might have actually been more articulate when talking to him. Okay, so because we both are Nevadans, and so like have a little bit of experience with Harris, and obviously me with like personal experience, but like. Everybody kind of just dealt with her. And I said, everyone hates Harris just like Hillary. Trump's second term is going to be worse than the first and will... I don't know if I could say that. And we'll have the same false equivalency and red-baiting rhetoric from assholes like our certain relations to blame.
Yeah. All right. So
moving on.
But like, it's that false equivalency of like, well, I don't like either candidate, but at least it's not Hillary.
Yeah. So, all right. So, Electoral college. I mean, yeah, we can talk about that another time. That's a whole thing. Sean, thank you for the $5. But yeah, it's the electoral college that votes and not that. But I remember a stream I watched. It was probably last year from you, Mr. B, where you had somebody on that was talking about a different election format. I don't know if it was star voting or whatever, but I thought that was kind of interesting. Have you kind of thought about what do you think would be a better system? Because I know you've covered that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, just simply put, there are
ranked choice, that stuff.
Ranked choice voting is the most common alternative voting system we could implement at the state level. Every state controls elections differently. So we already see ranked choice voting in Alaska and Maine right now, and they do that for their federal elections. But I like star personally as my favorite. It's basically a
quick, like couple sentence recap of what that is again.
Yeah, like so you first score the votes. So that's what the S stands for. And then it's basically, just to not overcomplicate it, after you score all the candidates, then you have the top two that are left over after all the scores, after head-to-head matchups. Then whoever has a higher score between those two gets to be the president, or whoever, or wins the election. So. Look it up. Star voting. I like it. But honestly, all of them I think are better than what we have right now, which is called plurality voting, which is just winner takes all. Whoever has the most votes wins, which often means you are voting for the lesser of two evils or voting.
We aren't quite plurality voting. We are first past the post. But technically, if the Electoral College is less than majority, then it goes to the House.
Oh. Yeah, with the electoral vote, that's correct.
Yeah. It's not plurality; it's first past the post.
That's with the Electoral College, or with the presidential election. But I'm talking about all other elections,
local,
which are all still first past the post,
and plurality voting. So the person with the most votes wins.
This person said Alaska is getting rid of ranked choice.
It's on the ballot, but that doesn't mean it's gone.
Ranked choice cost Sarah Palin a House seat.
Okay. Thank you, Yusuke. So, have any of you read the January 6th Commission report, Eastman memo? I'd like to hear your thoughts. If every conservative did, the race would not be close. I don't know.
I don't know what
you guys familiar with it?
I don't know what the Eastman memo is. I did read a good chunk of the commission report. Didn't we do that in a live stream at one point?
Not with me, at least.
No, specifically Matt and Tigerstar.
I'm not.
Actually, no. I think Matt wasn't there. I think Tigerstar was. We did something on the 9/11 commission. 9/11.
January 6th, yeah.
You're already primed for that. Yeah.
January 6th commission report. Oh no, Matt, you were in it. It was the one that we did right after January 6th. It wasn't about the January 6th commission report, but it was the 1776 report. That's what I'm thinking of.
Okay. Yeah.
Ravenhill, thank you. I guess we've all been streaming the last few days, so that's cool. Mr. Beat did that. VTH, Mr. Terry. Thank you very much, Ravenhill. Okay. Let me just. And by the way, panelists, thanks again for being here. If any of you have to drop out, don't worry if you have to. There's just a half dozen more, maybe. But trying to see if there's any questions. Viper Breeze, $20. Thank you so much. Don't know if you hit on this earlier, as it just came in a few minutes ago. If Harris is confirmed as a nominee after the primaries, does this mean the Democratic Party will have an undemocratically elected nominee?
We did cover that. Technically, everyone voting for Biden was voting for Harris. Technically,
right?
It's weird.
Something had happened to Biden.
Yeah, it's weird because it's the same way that you don't really vote for a vice president.
Well, none of that. You're voting for electors, not for the candidate. When you vote,
but those electors
are voting for electors who can
voting
then
for
vote
the
for
electors
whoever they want in this scenario.
It's not an undemocratically elected nominee. It's an undemocratically nominated candidate.
Yeah, and even there, it's kind of within the. I mean, it's well within the Constitution. That's for sure.
The Supreme Court affirmed the Democratic Party's rights to run its conventions how it wants to.
Yeah,
2 or 3 years ago.
Good batches, thank you. Oh, what is this currency?
I think that's
not Chinese.
That looks awesome.
Malaysian, I think.
It's Malaysian. It's somewhere in Eastern Asia.
All right, we need to change our dollar sign to something else. Didn't we rip off the Spanish, if I remember right, for that?
I think that we got ours from the German word for Spanish money.
The money sign. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, that's how we got ours.
Speaking of German names here, all the women I know hate Harris.
You must not know a lot of women.
I mean, okay. Well, there's another question you have to ask.
Are you from California?
Are they Democrats? Are they, Republicans? Like that obviously is going to make a big.
Michael, are you from California? Because, frankly, just that was a discussion in the previous thing. Is that most Californians hate Harris?
It always looks bad if that happens.
Trump wins California in shocking upset.
Another Kansas City person saying they're Midwest. Thank you, young French toasty. What do you guys think of this matchup? Okay, it's a little bit late for this, but for Tulsi Gabbard,
I haven't heard about him in forever.
The grifter candidacy. Oh boy.
If he still has the eye patch, I mean that's gonna score some points. But Tulsi is an interesting character.
She ain't a Democrat anyways.
So much in the Republican Party, but some people thinking it was a grift the whole time.
I was wondering if Trump might not pull off a surprise and make her his nominee.
Yeah,
I was kind of surprised he didn't.
That would have been an interesting one, but
also Michael says that he's from Minnesota.
Oh, okay.
America needs football to return to heal our nation. It's coming up.
I mean, we got NCAA football 25 or college.
Hey, I heard that's 25. Really fun. Yeah,
I just finished my first season.
I don't know. Last time I checked, Taylor Swift politicized everything.
You didn't pick Ohio State, did you?
No, I'm Kent State.
Okay.
The Patriots need to win the Super Bowl for American unity.
You massacred the opponent. You massacred the opponent.
I went 11-3. I won the MAC and then won my my bowl game.
Hey, you guys know Shane Gillis. He says if you want to solve any social issues, you leave it to football. That was his thing. That football is what killed racism. Once they started to see that the black players good. All the Southerners were now a little bit more sympathetic.
Something that in recent research that something that we Mr. Terrian and I have spoken about, but that I recently discovered that the protest against the Mormon Church in 1974, I think it was by football players, was actually a huge factor in desegregating the church. Like they legit like sports protests against racism.
Well, teams weren't going to play BYU.
Yeah. And it was one team that like came to play, and then
that was
a bunch of racism in Salt Lake City, and like that became a huge deciding factor in the church's decision to desegregate, which is like I didn't realize how much President Kimball was like, no, we need to actually like respect their wishes and like have a revelation.
BYU is a case that it's for a lot of people, it's the face of the Mormon Church, of what a lot of people think about is literally BYU sports, and the football program is everything down there. And if that hurt the football program, it would hurt the university, and would would definitely kind of hurt the church. But they said the same thing about with polygamy too, because dropping polygamy because they were not going to give the United States statehood because of it. So
that currency we were asking about most recently is Indian rupees.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
All right, this one. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Saying election cycles didn't used to start until July.
Yes, go back please. To that?
I wish.
That'd be amazing.
I'd be kind of fine, because I don't know about you guys, but I get tired of it by the time the election. I'm politicked out.
Like, I was tired of it beginning of 2023.
No kidding.
All right, this guy wants William Jennings Bryan, commie killer. Perfect time for William Jennings Bryan to rise from the grave.
He was good at talking. He would do well today.
He would do way better today. Hey, what do you guys think about like a Eugene Debs, someone like that? Like, would do a lot better.
Basically the Bernie Sanders of his day.
I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Like, but now socialism is more of a dirty word than it was in the 19-teens. So
yeah.
All right.
Well, I mean, just the policies that they support are one and the same.
Yeah, pretty similar. Yep.
Favorite game or movie? Okay. For everyone, I don't know. I love Super Mario Brothers 3 is my favorite. My favorite game of all time. I play it on the gaming stream every once in a while. So
Journey is my favorite.
Which one?
Journey.
Oh, I think I've heard of that. Yeah.
I love that game so much.
The one I spend the most time on would be Football Manager.
Oh, wow. Hey, I used to play that in boring college classes on my laptop while
oh man, I'd hate you.
Yeah, like the classes I hated, I literally would play Football Manager.
And I can't tell you how many, because I didn't regulate students you know, playing games in class.
Yeah.
But you know who was doing it.
I would never do it now, because I was young and naive enough to think like it was one of those big auditorium classes.
Although I absolutely will when I do the random calling. Yeah, those are the ones I'm calling on. Absolutely. I know exactly who I'm calling on.
My school is when we left for the summer, our they were talking with the school committee and everything about officially banning basically the sight of cell phones in the high school. I know a lot of places do that, but
Ohio just changed the law on that. The schools are regulating it a lot more, and they've specified certain times of the day they're allowed to have their phones up.
It's what's going to have to be. Otherwise, there's going to be lawsuits, I feel like. So.
Well, that's also at the high school level. Like, and honestly, like we can't like, I don't know if you guys have tried to do it, but I remember as a substitute, I had to all the way back in 2013. So it's a bit of a different time, but like, I'd have teachers who would like tell me specifically to confiscate like all cell phones. And like give it back at the end of class. And I remember,
I wouldn't do that as a sub. As a sub, I would not do it. I'd be like, that's not worth it.
Yeah, if they gave any pushback whatsoever as a substitute, I was just like,
no,
go stand outside of class.
You're already
something like that, you know.
My dog's name's Frankie, and they want to know his opinions on politics. Whoever gives the most treats. So. All All right, what do we got here? Harrison, how long at Thanksgiving dinner does it take each of one of you to bring up politics?
Doesn't happen in my
the
house.
over-under is 5 minutes.
Doesn't happen.
The politics in
Is
my
it an
family is
issue?
divided on the
Any of you?
side of the family. So usually at each individual dinner, it's just not brought up because most people are in agreement.
It used to be a standard thing that there was like the thing that was off limits was when mom got too grossed out. And I'm not even joking. My World War II nurse of a grandmother would start telling stories, and then us historians would be joining in and all that kind of stuff, and then eventually my mom would be like, "It's the dinner table. Can we stop talking about cutting open human bodies, please?"
Thank you for that, Harrison. All right, here's a fun one.
But what I wanted to say there was that politics in 2020 became off the table.
I think we all agree
the
that
dividing
it
point
should be banned from the table. Like,
it wasn't before. It was
point.
perfectly
people
fine.
that can't let it go.
Had conversations about that all the time. Even in the big family, Patton clan stuff, like that was, and that could get as big as 120 people. And
but your family's different.
So here's this one from Andy. Project 2025. We know that's going to get talked about a lot. President Trump says he has no idea what it is and doesn't care about it. And
he never lied. So he must be telling the truth this time.
Yeah.
Right.
How different do you guys, from what if you know anything about it, is it different, you think, from right now the mainstream Republican Party platform? How far off of it? Some people I've heard say like, no, it's just that's the party. It's the saying the things out loud. They're not saying the things out loud. Like the things people want to say out loud, and they're being quiet.
I think Trump's more to the left of Project 2025.
I don't think that at all.
I
think it's just he knows full
abortion,
well that
gay rights. He's definitely to the left of that.
I think he's more indifferent. Like he's not going to stand in Project 2025's way.
But here's the thing. I think a lot of the discourse over Project 2025, the main thing that is of concern is how it presupposes getting rid of basically the entire government bureaucracy and replacing it with yes men, right? That's the main idea of Project 2025.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like the Tea Party. It's stuff that it may move the needle for the Republican Party.
But this has huge historical precedent because
it's not going to happen though.
But what it's really just trying to bring back. We had this system. Project 2025 is literally just trying to bring back something that we already had.
Yeah.
What is it?
I don't know.
Century?
Yeah, 19th century, sure.
If you're talking this was us in the 50s, you know what I mean? But
spoils. It's the spoils system.
Oh, spoils. Oh,
they're trying to bring back the spoils system. That's all it is.
I wonder if there's an element of because it's not his plan, he won't buy it.
I see Dr. Puppy said it right before me. Damn.
You got it. Dr. Puppy got it. Yeah, there we go.
It's the spoils system. That's all it is.
All right, there's 3 more here. All right. Oh, yeah. So Indian rupees. Thank you so much. Good batches. Thank you so much. All right. Chris here. Thank you. Says Mr. Beats 2024 video will be wild without doubt.
Yeah, definitely a good episode coming up.
Honestly, I haven't watched your 2021.
Oh yeah, the comment section is it's
the comment section.
I'm sure it's very civil and
everybody agrees that Trump lost that election in the comment section.
You should just pick up that series for the most random country on the planet for no reason, Zimbabwe or something.
That should be your April Fool's joke.
Shout out
Mugabe won with 90% of the vote in the 1996 Zimbabwe election.
I still think the ultimate April Fool's video would be me and Cypher doing a joint video singing the praises of Woodrow Wilson.
Well, it would have to be something like everything Woodrow Wilson did right, and we just come up and go,
and then that's it.
It's just like staring at the screen going.
Well, starting the baseball throwing tradition was kind of neat.
Yeah, I like that idea. We might have to do that.
All right.
And then I hand it over to VTH to continue the pondering.
DJ Leach, thank you. Said we're living in the most difficult section of someone's AP Gov exam in 2053. In 2053.
No, we're not. I'll explain why. Here explains the 2020s. The middle class is shrinking, and so when the middle class shrinks, people turn to demagogues, and their views have become more extreme, and then they hide in their echo chambers thanks to the rise of social media.
But that has never happened ever before.
Right, but
no, that's never happened.
2053. That's your answer. I just gave it to you, DJ.
But Mr. B.
But here's the thing that I wanted to bring up earlier was, we kept on bringing up parallels to 1968, and one thing that absolutely is not a parallel is that this time is not as crazy.
That's true.
Nowhere close.
We have recency bias. We think it's never been like this before, but you're right. It was way worse in 68.
And I tend to think of like, even 1968 isn't the craziest year in our history. It's 1919, but like and that wasn't even an election year. But like there's a reason why in 1920 Harding ran saying, let's return to normalcy. Normalcy. But in 1968, you had the rise of the New Left. You had the Vietnam War at its peak. Literally, what was the campaign in 1968?
Tet
Offensive. Thank you. You had the Tet Offensive. You have two major assassinations. You've got freaking rise of a presidential candidate trying to run on segregation. Like there's all this crap happening, and then the president, the incumbent president, drops out. Like, the incumbent president dropped out before either of the assassinations, but the Vietnam War was at a point that it was over 500,000 American troops in Vietnam. We haven't had a war that big ever since.
I would also add, Mr. B, perhaps by 2053, because that's 3 whole decades away. Maybe the middle class will be growing again by then.
You would hope so.
I would have missed out on that, but
Oh, we're lucky. We're the lucky ones. We get to live through these historic times. Yeah.
All right, what do you guys think of this one? Thank you, Patrick. Reagan would be too liberal for today's Republican Party.
He didn't leave the party. The party left him.
Certainly on some issues, for sure.
Yeah, the party left him. That's a great line. Yeah.
The Cold War's over or what?
Remember, Reagan was a Democrat when he was a young man. So, but no, Reagan certainly was more to the left on immigration compared to the modern Republican Party for sure. A couple other issues.
This is the third time I've assassinated Cypher with the most random joke.
Oh, it's more than the third.
RFK for the win in 1968. Is that what we're saying here, or
what happens to RFK after this? Does he disappear, or is he?
He's been dead since 1968. I don't know if you really want to.
Junior.
No, that's okay. I just saw this comment, and I know you're going to get to it, but I just love it. 1919 must have really been wild if even Theodore Roosevelt said, "Screw this, I'm out." For those who don't know,
I'll go ahead and fast track.
I thought he was dead by then.
He died in 1919.
He died in
literally. Okay.
He died in like January or February of 1919. Yeah, early in the year. There's a great book by N. Hagedorn. I don't remember what it's called, but it's called like what the book is called Savage Peace. I don't know how to pronounce her name. Is what I meant. It's funny because she was actually like the professor of one of my professors. But anyways, she wrote a book that's just called like Savage Peace, and like it's this thick. It's like 700 pages, and it's woefully incomplete.
Wow.
Man. Did you guys watch the Roosevelt little series on History Channel? The one that was fairly recent here?
Yes.
I make it a policy to avoid the History Channel.
Hey now.
Anything that I was gonna time. We got to shout out.
I have more connection to the History Channel than any.
We got to shout out,
and that's the reason why.
Got to be on the History Channel here.
I've been on the History Channel
before. Going back to
film. Go back?
I was on the History Channel in the 90s.
What? When you were a child?
Yep.
Was that a fun experience though, Chris? Like, is that something you'd like to keep doing? Or would you like to do that more?
The two experiences that I've had so far were very different from one another.
Yeah.
So when I did The Great War, which already aired, that one was in Minneapolis in a little room. It was a third party that like was contracted to make the series. It was like 100 degrees outside. I was wearing a suit and tie. I was literally like a foot away from the producer. So like, I'm talking like this the whole time because he's right in front of me. It was like 2 people in the room. This other one I did for this TV series that I did 4 episodes, and I'm going to go back and do 4 more here in a couple of weeks, was at the History Channel studios in Manhattan. Huge room, like 6 producers, green screen. I'm up on like this throne looking thing. So it was a very, very different experience. Plus I got paid for that one. So
yeah,
you got paid
back
for
in
it?
like October, the people that were representing Apple TV doing that, the World War II pilots, the one they did on the.
Oh yeah, that who reached out to you?
Yeah, they reached out to me, and I didn't get to the next step, but I thought that was cool. It's like, yeah, I want to do it once. I want to try something like that one time to be on one of those shows, but they ended up moving on without me.
For one that didn't like just a couple years ago. I didn't actually have my. I was like literally had just passed my what's it called? My defense, my dissertation defense. So I was technically a doctor, but not by like an official name. So they had to do the Chiron differently. But it never aired because another expert screwed up so badly. It was about the MGM fire, and like I got called in because Vegas.
All right, I got to wrap up. But go ahead. Yeah.
And they never aired it.
Darn. Michelle Obama, we kind of mentioned her earlier. She doesn't have any interest in that.
No, that's not happening.
She liked being first lady, got to really got to make her platforms known. But
she's everybody's pipe dream candidate because there's nothing to hit her. There's nothing negative for her because she isn't a candidate.
Yeah. It's easy to, for that. I was ready for Steve Kornacki talking about votes. Who's ready for that?
I love Steve Kornacki. He's awesome.
I have no idea who that is.
All right, last one here.
That is either.
Last one here. I guess this is just a note to everyone from our friend from India there. It says, I hope you guys do not get polarized. I hate modern politics. The polarization of politics is similar here in India. Yeah, I know that last election just happened here with Modi, and it gets very interesting. I don't know if you guys have had covered Indian topics very well, but Indian nationalists are an interesting group when they come in. If they comment on things, they're
nationalists of any stripe end up being like
typically like
honestly American nationalists are like the most tame of the bunch.
Yeah, that's fair.
Where you're hearing from them right now is they are like maybe the most outside of maybe like the US. That demographic is so pro-Israel because their whole group is, it's Hindu nationalism. It's very much against like the Islamic history of India and those kind of things. So
I'll say this about this topic because I addressed this on my stream this afternoon. I have largely tried to avoid modern politics at all costs on my channel, but I'm recognizing more and more the need to speak out on it because, and listen, it's not some kind of messiah complex or some idea on my part that I'm somehow going to change people. But I feel like there need to be more voices that can speak out about these topics and demonstrate that it's possible to do this without being hateful and without demonizing the other side. I think you're looking at 5 of us right here that definitely do not agree on all things in politics if we started talking about it. But I think we all respect each other and we all like each other. And that's the thing. I think that we need to be able to demonstrate more of that because it's really lacking these days.
Amen. That's why I've kind of gotten back to it, mostly with the idea that for me, it's been providing historical context to current events. I think that's super important. It's
applied
a thing I tell my students
that's
all
what
the
that's
time.
called.
Yep.
What was that?
Applied history.
Yeah.
Oh no, we're using things we learned in school. No.
It's literally what I tell my students it on the first day about the whole why do we study history thing.
The reason why I was in Salt Lake City last time was specifically to talk about that. Like that was my topic. The other person on this panel was wrong. Other person, Matt. Just trying to do the Brady Bunch thing here. But the he was talking about educational value, and like that's about like evangelizing to the historical profession, but that's kind of a way to get people to evangelize to laymen as well as through applied history, applying history to the present.
Sure. Thank you, Diego, and thank you, Patrick. There, this is
a lot of people talking about Governor Bashir.
Yeah, Bashir.
Yeah, he could be. Could be.
So we see Shapiro probably get talked about, and then oh my gosh,
Governor
Michigan. What's her name? What's her name again? Michigan. Gretchen, and yeah. So
Pete Buttigieg.
Is that? Do you think that's geographically a good pick though?
I think anyone from the Midwest. I think that's what.
Oh, you just triggered Tigerstar there.
All right, guys. Well, I don't want to
take the Midwest. Damn it.
I don't want to take any more of your guys' time. I really appreciate you guys coming on and just talking about this. It's something I wanted to do, and it's one thing to go make a video about these things, but it's fun to just get everyone's perspective here at the same time. So I really appreciate you guys coming on, and love to do it again another time. But as we leave, each of you, if you want to plug anything, what are you up to? Where can they find you? I think for the most part, 99% of everyone knows each other here. I know, especially with me and Chris there, we have identical, almost fan bases because we do a lot of similar stuff. I think everyone knows anybody. But anyways, yeah, Chris, anything?
You and Beat are going down next week in some Risk when we finally get done. Tomorrow, but we're waiting until we're going to next week.
Yeah, I'm waiting on some people. I will tell you, we're putting together a game of Risk in the near future. It was proposed by the Fat Electrician back when I had my holiday stream, and we're trying to get him, Drew Durnall, another gamer, fun guys. We're trying to do that, but it should be interesting because Matt, you said you've never played Risk.
Yeah, embarrassingly, I'm embarrassed to say that I've never played Risk.
A rookie, yes.
Can I make a recommendation on that? By the way,
what do you got?
There's a fun website called conquerclub.com. Okay. And it's basically online Risk that like each person gets like 24 hours in their turn. So it doesn't have to be in like one sitting. It's just off to the side. But they've got Risk maps for multiple places, multiple time periods. Like you can do like Risk for Napoleonic Europe. You could do Risk for like the Chinese Civil War, the American Civil War, like all these other things. So
that'd be cool for expert mode. Man, I need stuff like this. If I could do it quickly in my classes.
The official Risk online version has a lot of different maps. I mean, it doesn't have to have like specific to time periods, but
have you tried the Napoleon version? Have you tried the European Napoleon one? I see that one. I mean, there's so many versions. It's really not very complicated, Matt. Don't worry about it.
But the nice thing is, like as people are saying, don't knock them out too early. Even when people get knocked out, we'll still stay in the chat and talk, so it'll be fun.
Somebody said Drew's going to win, so we'll see.
Drew's going down. We're going to gang up on Drew.
All right. Anyways, anything else, Chris?
No, I would just say if people are interested in the stuff we've been talking about, I did do a 2-hour stream earlier, and it's up on my channel
still up
as well. And I did have some personal stuff in the middle of it that I talked about too. So, but then I got back to I quoted Hamilton and said, "Can we get back to politics, please?" But
no one ever says that. All right, Cypher, got anything?
I'm just working on typical episodes every couple of weeks. I've got a whole bunch of stuff on the works. I don't know what to say.
You're the king of posting the comments on your on your Twitter. All the what's your phrase about like bigots and stuff? And bigots get banned.
Well, you just throw King is no longer right next to me. Otherwise, I'd grab him. He's
public shaming.
He's over there. But yeah, I absolutely go after bigots.
That's funny. All right, Matt, by the way, love your gold plaque.
Yeah, it's looking good back there.
Yeah. They got that out quick, huh?
Yeah, they did.
Come pretty fast.
I definitely, if you want to learn more about presidential elections in American history, I have a whole series and a book. And
Matt, you have did the beat go on past 100,000?
Oh yeah, it did a while back. Yeah, that's what one of those is. Yeah,
we need zany time. We need zany time
to get
that one, brother.
I love zany time.
The world's not ready for zany time.
Yeah. All right, Emperor Tigerstar, what you got? What are you up to? Where can people find you?
So let's see. I've made a randomizer of a bunch of vaguely political quotes from songs. So let me hit the shuffle button. If you choose not to decide, you have still made a choice. Rush.
Rush.
Perfect.
Nice.
Wow. That's awesome.
That's a great quote.
Mm-hmm. Use it to guilt trip as many people as possible. I'm sure it will go very well.
I've done it before. I used that in my political polarization series.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us on.
We'll go ahead and head out. If you weren't here at the beginning, I'll play that AI song everybody was loving.
It was funny.
It's Jover. It's an AI song about him. I'll play that for you. Thanks again, everybody, for
see you guys.
hanging out. Let's do it again soon. And everyone have a good night.
Bye.
Get to you later. Gotta click this real quick, and there we go. Alrighty.
There we go.
Wait, what are we doing?
Orange man bad and China scary. Fund the police and grow our military. Ignore the fact that Biden's dying. Keep hammering on how Trump is lying. The media is where we vent and manufacture your consent. We just want you all to feel much better before you remember to vote in November. And don't listen to those commies say it's Joe, it's Joe, but just admit that it is Joe. It's over, Joe. It's over. Tell Joe to go, it's Joe. Just vote blue, no matter who. Either way, the whole world's future rests on you. Your APAC has us under their control. Fascism won't take root if you play your role. Ultimately, it's not our call, 'cause climate change will kill us all. Eventually, anyway, vote for Joe. I don't want to hear you say it's Joe. It's Joe, but just admit that it is Joe. It's over, Joe. It's over. It's Joe. It's Joe. It's over, Joe. It's Joe. Just admit